Hey, everybody. How are you all? What's going on, guys? How are you? Are you paying attention to me now, or do I have to do a song and dance or something? I'm not going to song and dance, so you better look at me now. It's not going to happen. So, he might. I'll ask him. I'll ask him later. But here's the most important thing. Welcome to the Pumpkins and Peace event here in New Jersey. I'm glad you're all here. You can clap now if you want to. I appreciate you guys being here tremendously. The idea of peace is important. It makes me think of a story I heard many years ago. This was before a lot of civilization, when there was a lot of chaos and a lot of people fighting all over the place, people coming by and robbing and raping and killing and pillaging and stealing and all those types of things. And then the people weren't happy because everything would be horrible. And a guy came up to an idea. He said, hey, I got an idea. He goes, how about instead of all these people robbing you, only I rob you? Just me. I'll be the only guy who robs you. Just me. And they said, really? Just you? Yeah, I'll be the only guy who robs you. And I'll come by only once a year or so. I won't rob you always. It'll be once a year. I'll rob you. And I promise I won't take everything. I mean, almost everything, but not everything. You will be able to live. And they said, yeah, we have a lot of killing. We have a lot of raping too. Is that going to go away? You know, a little bit maybe, but no, but not really. I'm only promising the robbing part. And it's the best part. If someone else tries to rob you, I'll go kill them. So there'll only be me robbing you. That's it. And the people say, who are you? He said, my name is Monarchy. And they went, oh, well, better than what we got now. I guess I'll take that. It took them some time to accept this, to become kind of the norm. And then somebody came up and said, wait a minute, hold on for a second here. I got another idea. How about we'll do this thing that's you'll have some say in how much I steal from you. You know, what? Yeah, I'll give you some say. You have some, so you're still going to steal from me. Yeah, I'm still stealing. But you'll have some say in how much I steal from you. And here's the best part. The best part is, if the votes go the right way, you get to be the robber. What? I get to be the robber? Yes, if the votes go the right way, you can even be the robber. And they said, wow, that sounds okay. Well, who are you? He said, I'm democracy. I said, oh, okay. This seems better than this monarchy thing. Maybe we should try that thing. But now there's someone else saying something. They're saying, hey, I have this idea. What? How about nobody robs you? How about nobody robs you? And how about it doesn't matter where the votes go, but nobody robs you? And if someone wrongs you, you have a right to make things right. I said, wow, this sounds crazy. Who are you? I'm Liberty. That's who I am. I'm the guy who's going to promise that to you. And they said, no, I've been robbed for thousands of years. No, thanks. That's what actually happened. Yes. That's the sad part, is when we come to tell people this, that we are the group of people who don't want to harm you, who don't want to take your stuff, who want you to be fair, who want the world to actually be fair. We're the ones who want that. It's surprising how many people actually push back and go, no, I've been being robbed for so long. I just want to make sure that it feels kind of like a fair robbing. That's what I want. I want that to be the case. We have a lot of work to do here. A lot. Tons and tons of work to get people to understand that our way is the right way. So many people think, you libertarians, you guys are just selfish and mean and stuff. And I would argue that we are actually the most loving of them all. We're the ones who actually care about individuals and not the systems and not the big wigs. We care about people and individuals. We care about family. We care about those types of things. We are actually the most loving of them all. I hope you guys agree. Do you? That's why it's called Pumpkins and Peace, because it's all about peace. And that's what people actually want. But I want to do something if I could. I'm going to bring up somebody here now who helped put this thing together, who really was taking a lot of time, energy out of her day. She's the chair of the North New Jersey Libertarian Party, the woman herself, Arielle Jack. Please.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone who drove in, flew in, and clicked in. I really appreciate it. We are a very small region of the New Jersey Libertarian Party. And one of the things that's so great about our party is it is completely decentralized, which means that as our region can do whatever we want. And one of the things that we do when a new member comes in is we say, what do you want to do to spread liberty? And a few months ago, we had Lana come into New Jersey's, like a North Jersey meeting, and we said, what do you want to do to spread liberty in North Jersey? And she said, I want to host an event on October 3rd. And we were like, a Tuesday? And she was like, wait, hear me out, hear me out. Do you know that October 3rd, 1913 is the day and the reason that an act was signed into law for the Federal Reserve to exist? What? Then I was like, okay, we need to talk about this. Okay, we should definitely have this. And one of the things that we do as a region is we're really family focused. North Jersey is like a suburb of New York City. So we have all these families who really don't know how to conceptualize liberty. So everything that we're doing in North Jersey is to bring liberty to the family, which is why we have an event, Pumpkin and Peace, which was a children's event. We have some children here, and they painted pumpkins, and it was very cute. Because we want to bring liberty to these families. We want everyone to be able to sit at the dinner table and talk about politics and liberty. We don't want people to be scared of libertarians. We don't want people to be scared of political discourse. And that's our goal for our region. So one of the things you guys can do to support us and to support that goal would be to go to northnjlp.org and donate, because we have so many classes for families and for children to spread liberty and to teach them about all of these concepts of non-aggression principle and volunteerism and everything that we do as a party. So please go to our website and donate, and we can put on more cool, crazy events like this. This one like blew up for us, and we're so excited about it. And thank you everyone for coming.
Oh, that is amazing. Thank you so much, Ara. I appreciate it. You know, there's going to be a debate later on today. If some of you are watching for that, there's going to be 3 people in debate. It's going to be Chase Oliver. It's going to be Michael Rectenwald. And it's going to be Joshua Smith. All 3 of them are going to be in debate. Now, you may not know this, but they actually drove together to get here. They did. All 3 of them drove together to get here. And what they didn't realize, they really did not drive well at all. They found themselves in a desert. In the desert. Car broke down in the desert with these 3 guys in the car. And when they got out, they were like, oh my God, now what are we going to do? We got to get to Jersey. What are we going to do? How do we do this? Rectenwald said, I'm smart. Hold on. Rectenwald said, I'm smart. He said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take out the radiator. They said, why? There's water in it. Oh, that's smart. I like that. Chase said, it's okay. I know the city. I got this. I'm taking off the hubcaps. They said, taking off the hubcaps? Why? Chase said, if I put it on my head now, the sun won't batter down on our head. See? Smart. Oh, Chase is smart. Joshua said, I got this. He took off the door. I said, Josh, why didn't the door off? He goes, well, if we're walking and we get hot, I'll roll the window down. Terrible joke, I know. I'm aware of that. Why did I do that? I'm prepping you. I'm prepping you for someone who actually is funny. Guy I'm going to bring up now is actually a real comedian. He's actually funny, not like me and my silly jokes. He, as you know, you've seen him on everything. You've seen him on Tim Pool. You've seen him on Joe Rogan. You've seen him all over the place. He is a voice of liberty for us all. He has been so good to bless us to come today. The man himself, Dave Smith.
Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you guys for coming out. I was going to curse a lot more in this until I saw these little kids here. So now I have to rewrite this all in my head. I'm just kidding. I have little kids too. Bluey. You guys Bluey fans? No? Okay. I'm bombing with the little kids already. All right. Larry is right. I am very funny, but you guys did not pay me enough to be funny here tonight. So you're going to have to deal with the comedy of Larry Sharp. That's all you're going to get. But I thank you guys for coming, and thank you for having me. These are my favorite type of libertarian events, and what I mean by that is the ones that are 15 minutes from my home. That is why I'm here, because this is very close to me. So I was thinking about what I wanted to say to you guys today, and I was thinking, so if you guys know Hans Hermann Hoppe is a great libertarian theorist, someone who would have disagreed with Larry's opening about democracy being an improvement over monarchy. But that aside, he gave a speech, I think it was in the late 1990s, and it was called What Must Be Done. And I thought I would just quickly give my own what must be done version. So what I think we need to do. And I would say a room full of people, I'm sure there's some people on different spectrums of the libertarian worldview, but I think probably everyone in this room, including the 3-year-olds, would agree that we all want a world that's radically less statist and more free than the one that we live in today. So that can at least be a starting point for us. And there's a lot of different libertarian strategies that are being implemented right now. There's kind of different movements with different goals in mind. There is certainly, I would say, the homeschool movement, which has exploded over the last few years, is a big movement against state control of children's education. There is the Free State Project up in New Hampshire, and there's other kind of relocation concentration efforts going on. That's probably the biggest one. There's the cryptocurrency movement, the Bitcoin movement more specifically, where people are trying to undermine the control of central banks. There are liberty Republicans who are trying to infiltrate the Republican Party and use that vehicle to to advance our goals. And then there's the Libertarian Party. Maybe I'm missing some, but those are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. And I just want to say, to be clear before I say this next part, I support all of them. I think they're all great. I am a member of the Libertarian Party because I particularly like this strategy. I think there's value in it, but I support all of them. I am not a partisan. Like if Thomas Massey won the Republican nomination and it looked like he could be president, I wouldn't be like, no, that's not my party. I'd be like, I think we should all rally behind him, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I support all of these efforts, but all of them as of right now, including our own, are failures. We're all failing, but we're failing together. So don't get too upset. But let's be honest. We're all failing, and we're all failing for the same reason. Every single one of them is not working for the exact same reason. And what is that reason? Because there's not enough of us, as is pretty evident in this room right now. There's just not enough of us. But that's okay. That's not the end of the world. We just have to recognize that the issue is that there are not enough people who believe in the principles of liberty. But, this whole room, this is something to really think about, okay? Murray Rothbard used to write about it. This whole room, only a few decades ago, would have consisted of the entire liberty movement. It was just this. It was like Murray Rothbard's living room. And now, today, there are thousands of people in every state, in every city across this country that really believe in liberty. So we were able to level up from that to where we are now. So now the goal is, can we level up from where we are now to something much bigger? Because think about this. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, I don't know, what is the Libertarian Party got 1.5 million votes, I think, for Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen. Now, okay, something along there. So Larry really had to correct me on that one. He goes, sorry, dude, bummer, 1.3, whatever. Okay, but let's say, just for the sake of argument, 1 million of them are like hardcore libertarians. What if we had 10 times more than that? What if we had 10 million? Because we don't need 51% of the country. But if we had 10 million, now all of a sudden, let's take a look at these strategies. Well, if you took Bitcoin, way more people are trading in Bitcoin. This actually becomes viable. If you took the Free State Project, way more people are moving to New Hampshire. Now they actually take over a state, okay? And you go down the list. All of these projects end up becoming way more viable if we have more numbers. And so that, to me, is what the goal has to be for all of us. It doesn't matter what position you're serving, whether you're just a member of the party or you're just somebody who's interested in these ideas or you're somebody who's running for office, whatever it is, what our goal should always be. I think the number one priority should always be introducing more people to these ideas and trying to persuade more people to our side. Now, there's a subset of libertarians who that I think of as kind of black-pilled, who would argue that this can't happen and it's naive to believe that it can. And their argument is essentially that the American people have already heard our ideas and they've rejected them, and that people just don't want liberty. This is just not right. I'm sorry? Right. Well, that's where I was going. Well, okay. Well, let me just go with the thought I was gonna finish with. But there's the truth is that, and this is just the objective truth, is that there is the vast majority of people simply have not come in contact with these ideas, and there is a large number of them. I'm not saying it's a majority, and I'm not saying that it's like we know exactly where the ceiling is, but there's a lot of people who, when presented with these ideas, find them very compelling. And I'm proof of this, because literally all I do, I'm in front of live audiences all the time. I do every weekend. I'm out on the road doing stand-up comedy shows. I do speaking engagements. I do all these things. And every time I'm met by at least someone, usually many people, who go, "You changed my life when you introduced me to these ideas. I had never heard of this before until I heard you, and now I'm totally convinced of this." And those people are all over the place. A lot of us, particularly like people who have come into libertarianism in the last, say, couple decades, almost feel like, well, at this point, everyone must have heard of this. But if you walk down the street and just stop a random person and ask them about whatever topic you're talking about, the odds are they haven't even heard of it yet. So it's if we understand that the only way to get from point A being where we are to point B being a freer society is to have more people be awakened to these ideas, then understand that that's what our calling is. That's what all of us have to focus on doing. And that doesn't matter. Whatever your way of doing that, I don't know. But there is something you could be doing. This might be like talking to your friends and family. This might be just sharing people who you think are very persuasive to other people, or whatever it is, contributing to whoever you think is a great messenger, working on someone's campaign. There's a million ways to do it, but that's what the effort has to be, to introduce these ideas to more and more people. And that's what I think, no matter what role you're playing in all of this, that's what your mind state should be. How can I introduce this to more people in a way that they might find it compelling? So once you understand that the goal is to try to awaken more people to these ideas, I would suggest that we look at the people who have been most successful at doing that. And there's one person who comes to mind, which I imagine all of you already know who I'm talking about, which is Dr. Ron Paul. Because nobody in my lifetime has generated more interest in the ideas of liberty than he has. So let's look at that and at least try to learn something from his example. So what is it? How was Ron Paul able to generate such enormous enthusiasm in the ideas of libertarianism? Because really, if you take a look at it, it's quite a remarkable thing. I mean, here was this old, stuttering country doctor who was, hosting banking subcommittee hearings on the role of precious metals in currency, and then would go from that hearing to speaking to 30,000 young people who were like losing their mind with how excited they were over this guy. It's a truly remarkable thing that happened. And so what was it? And I think I would argue that if you look at it, what Ron Paul did was, there were a few elements to it. Number one, he was truly principled and he truly believed in what he was saying. And number two, he had a depth of knowledge about these topics that was just impressive to anybody who listened to them. And number three, in addition to that, is that he wasn't, Ron Paul didn't fall into something that I think a lot of libertarians have a tendency to fall into, is that we're kind of into theory and philosophy. But Ron Paul never led with that. Ron Paul led with the crisis that the nation was facing. That was what any famous Ron Paul moment was never him just talking about like the non-aggression principle, or just Austrian business cycle theory in the abstract. He was talking about the war in Iraq and what caused the disaster. He was talking, if he was talking about Austrian business cycle theory, he was talking about the financial crisis of 2008 and what caused that disaster. You know, I have my gauge for how to how to communicate with regular people is always my father-in-law. My father-in-law is he's like a working class guy his whole life. He's a truck driver. He dropped out of high school because his dad got him a fake license. So, because he was like 15, so he could start trucking already. And he's been doing it since then. And he's 70 now. And he's just been a truck driver he had a few other jobs, but like he's been a working class guy his whole life. And if I start talking to my father-in-law and I say to him, I go, hey, let me tell you about this non-aggression principle. Okay, it's like we have the view that like you don't have the right to initiate violence against other peaceful people, and that they don't have the right to it's like I'm losing him. But if I start talking to him about why the prices of everything are out of control, and it's because all this money printing, he's like, yeah, gotcha. Because now you're actually talking about what matters in real life. Most people are not like us, okay? But that's okay, because our role is to actually know what we're talking about and then be able to convey that to those people. What I think that when we look at Ron Paul, what he did was he was able to deliver this message in a way that was demonstrated deep knowledge related to the crisis of the day, and was done in a way that was professional and compelling and radical. I think the old guard in the Libertarian Party, before the shakeup over the last couple of years, had a tendency to think that we probably shouldn't talk about the areas where we're most radical if they're going to be unpopular. We should kind of like compromise a little bit of the message so that we don't upset people. But that was totally against the lesson of Ron Paul. And if I'm being completely honest, I think some of the people in the rank and file in the Mises caucus have this tendency to like edgelord and are the kids gone? Shitpost and say things in this kind of provocative way. Well, let's just be kind of reactionary against the establishment. But also, that's not the lesson from Ron Paul at all. All of that is wrong. And none of that is ever how anyone does a good job of persuading people. What Ron Paul did was always just be the most professional, gentlemanly guy who just knew more than everybody in the room. He gave America a history lesson. That was his contribution. And the history lesson was so compelling that people went, whoa, like I've never heard it explained to me in that way before. That's what makes the difference. And I'll tell you right now that if you poll people who are libertarians, like most of it, I know that there's always a few people who are in this weird, goofy party we're in who are like second generation libertarians because their parents were libertarians. But the vast majority of libertarians were something before that. And then they got introduced to something and became libertarians. And I guarantee you the overwhelming majority was not somebody being like, well, I want to legalize pot, but I wouldn't go as far as the other drugs, you know? And I guarantee you the overwhelming majority wasn't someone just saying, like being a dickhead on Twitter or something like that. So I think there's this like, what we need to have if we want to achieve this goal of converting way more people is what I always referred to as a professional radicalism. Like that's Ron Paul to me. The most professional, like country doctor who's been married to the same woman for 70 years and wouldn't know the smell of pot if he smelled it, even though he's smelled it a lot just because he hangs out with us. But who would still just tell you the entire history of everything that happened. So I'd say like your job, if you're trying to convince anybody, is number one, really know what you're talking about. Yes, not everybody else is going to be interested in doing all of the in-depth reading that it takes to really understand what's going on. But that's our job to do that so that we can convey it in a compelling way. And as we learned from Ron Paul, to focus on kind of the crises of the day. And look, it's not 2008. 2023 is a very different time. And we have a different list of things that are like what we have to deal with. Some of them are the same. Like we still want to end the Federal Reserve. Fiat currency is still a problem. But things have changed. So, okay, I just want to go through a few things that I think have changed that we should focus on. So number one, let me ask you, do you guys watch like the corporate press at all? Does anyone here, you still watch CNN? Larry, you still punish yourself? Me too, I do too, because I have to, because I do a show about it 3 times a week. But any of you guys, be honest, you can say, you watch the presidential debates or anything, a little bit there? You're a little, okay. When have you heard how much they're talking about radical Islamic terrorism on the news these days? No, it's gone. Not even a thought. It's unbelievable. They don't even mention it. They're not even claiming victory over it because they know they can't, because they know anyone could look at it and just be like, yeah, you didn't do anything to help. You made it much worse. But it doesn't come up anymore. Why? They're not trying to sell a next war in the Middle East anymore. So that is not where the propaganda is. Who are they trying to sell wars against? Russia, and what's the other one? China, okay? That's the new front. That's the new front in where libertarians need to be anti-war, okay? Now, I will tell you this, okay? Harry Browne, in 2001, wrote what I consider to be the greatest piece of libertarian writing in history. It was in 2001, and the piece, I don't know if you guys remember this, it was on September 12th, and the piece was titled, "When Will We Learn?" He wrote it the day after 9/11, and the whole piece was basically the Ron Paul Giuliani moment. Just him going, we really thought we could just go around the Muslim world bombing them as much as we wanted to, and that we would never have to deal with any repercussions from that. And I don't know, for people who are like my age or older, the courage it took to write that on September 12th was just astounding. And the piece is fantastic. You can see antiwar.com, I think, has it archived up there if you want to go read it, and you haven't. But like today, when you stand up and you say that it is absolutely like inexcusable and incredibly reckless that the U.S. federal government went out of their way, which, let's face it, is the truth, went out of their way to provoke this war in Ukraine at every single point where the war could have been negotiated away, even after the war had started and the Russians and the Ukrainians were willing to negotiate. They went out of their way to make sure those negotiations didn't happen. And the idea that we're now trying to, like, we're supposed to lead into a bigger conflict with Russia while we're also provoking a conflict with China, this is the new game in town for libertarians to get out in front of and talk about how we need to end these conflicts and not start the one with China. And I will just say this briefly, that there is, I'd say, a small subset of the libertarian movement and the Libertarian Party that will accuse you of being like some type of Putin sympathist, you know, like some type of Putin apologist. If you say this, right, you get it. And now listen, I can understand that I get this from MSNBC types, but the fact that anybody in the Libertarian Party, these people would have called Harry Browne an Al-Qaeda apologist or a Saddam apologist, that is despicable. It has no place in our movement. Our role, listen, there are different different libertarian arguments about immigration. There are different libertarian arguments about abortion. I know people who have come from who have good faith arguments starting from a libertarian position to argue that I believe I'm pro-choice. Now, I don't agree with them, but I'm pro-life, but I can still recognize that there are good faith libertarian arguments that can be made. Same with immigration. There's been good faith arguments made by Walter Block and good faith arguments made by Hans Hermann Hoppe. But if we're talking about the war in Ukraine, if you're talking about taxing American citizens to fund an authoritarian government that is conscripting its soldiers into a war, there is simply no libertarian argument to support that. We oppose the war in Ukraine, and we oppose Vladimir Putin invading, and we also oppose America being involved at all, period. That is the libertarian position. That's number one. And the other thing I'll say is that libertarians, to be a libertarian in 2023 and to oppose the crises that we're facing right now require you to be a conspiracy theorist. There's no more not embracing that. That's what we are. Now, I'm not saying we have to embrace every conspiracy out there. There's some really bad ones. But if you have survived through the last 3 years and are still going to say, we don't think that maybe there are some elites conspiring to take away our liberty, you have not been paying attention and you don't know enough to teach anybody else anything. If you say, look, if I were to say to you that they want us to be eating bugs and owning nothing and being happy and all, I'm just quoting the leaders of the World Economic Forum. I'm taking them at their word. We have to be willing to not, look, the term conspiracy theorist was created to shame people who had questions about the Jack Kennedy assassination. Because that was crazy to have questions about that thing that they still won't let you see the documents over all these years later. So we've got to shake that off. We've got to be willing to talk. And the good news is that there's a more fertile ground for these ideas than ever before. So don't feel like you have to compromise your values or your ideas, because actually right now we're living in a moment where there's enormous interest in railing against the elites. So what we want to do is we want to kind of take that energy that so many people have today about being distrustful of those in power, and we want to take that and not just use it for nothing, not just say, yeah, they're terrible and we're with you, but try to channel that back into what we're all about. I think that's the challenge for libertarians, and I think that what keeps me really excited about this is that in many ways, I think we've never had more fertile ground for all of this to take off. So thank you guys again for coming out. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Oh my God, that's great. I love so many things that he said. I love what's going on here. I hope you enjoyed that, but I have something that's a little bit different now. I want to bring up somebody because we're going to have, I know I told you we're going to have a debate with 3 presidential candidates, but we are very lucky. We have more than just 3 who are with us. A couple of them are not with us personally, but I should say physically, but they are here virtually. I'm going to bring up the former chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party, Dan Kraus, to deal with that. Dan, come on up.
Isn't Larry just so damn handsome in that blazer? Come on, look at the man. Look at the man. He looks good. You know what else looks good? This nice New Jersey Libertarian Party t-shirt we were selling a little while ago. Limited edition. Let's hear it for the people that put that together. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to go first with a live Q&A with Lars. Is he available? All right.
Yes, I am.
All right, Lars, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
One moment, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently, there's a little bit of an issue with the audio. And while we're talking, I would like to take a moment to just point out that this entire event was put on by the North New Jersey Libertarian Party. Please visit their website, North NJLP. You can find them just by searching on Google. They are doing fantastic work, and they could really use your donations. So if you're going to give, think of North New Jersey LP, the NJLP as well. There is some dead air right there. Oh, that's unfortunate. All right, so like Larry was saying, my name is Daniel Kraus. I am the former state chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party. I served from 2020 until 2022. Subsequently, it was our current chair is a brilliant guy. I know he's watching tonight, so I see you. I see you, James. James Ripley. So anything that's going on in the party is his fault. Talk to him. It's not my fault anymore. We also have a couple of the regional chairs in the room. We have Ariel, who the people in the room heard from earlier and was mentioned before. She's doing a fantastic job. We also have Tim O'Brien, who is the chair of the Southern region. If anyone is unsure about how we organize things in the state of New Jersey, we make sure that we have broken our counties into groups so that any individual candidate, any individual person, any individual that wants to get involved is able to without any sort of problem, and is able to pool the resources of the party to make sure that this amazingly free state of New Jersey, come on, there's no boos or hisses on that, come on, is able to actually move towards freedom at some point in our lives. Now I'm just going to take a moment to look over at tech support. How are we doing over there, guys? All right, so I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but they brought out both the chicken and the incense. So maybe we'll have some movement on this. So, is there any way to get the audio out? Lars, I love you, sir. You're a patient man. Well, we'll do a little background on what the New Jersey Libertarian Party and what the Libertarian Party is about to go into with the presidential debates and
can I hear you, Mike?
presidential contest in
Mike,
general.
can you hear me?
So
I can hear you, Lars.
candidate
You're
for
coming
New
in
Jersey
loud and
for the
clear, so
Libertarian
the
Party
problem
in
must be
general
on
is
their end.
chosen
Can you hear
at
me?
our convention,
I can hear you fine, thanks.
which is in
I can see you too. Your background is fantastic. Where are you? Or is that a fake background?
Yeah, it's a fake.
So for 2024, this year in DC. So if you'd like to come out and join it, come on out and join us. The delegates are selected by each individual state at their convention. I hear a little bit of audio.
Test.
I hear a little bit. I hear a little bit here. All right.
Testing.
It's very low. Is there any way to boost his signal?
Turn it up.
Test.
Much better. A little bit more, please.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Lars!
Yay!
Hooray! You
We're
have a
live.
voice, sir.
All
How are you
right.
today?
Good, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience today. We got off to a late start, but it's going to be a good evening, and I'm very glad you were able to attend. I know originally you were going to be doing this as a pre-recorded message to the party, but thank you very much for being live. So we'll get right to it, sir. So you have an interesting backstory. You have an interesting way of how you came to be running for the office of the nomination for the presidential office. How did you come to Liberty? What would you say to these good people in the party at large about how you came to Liberty?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I grew up really poor. I grew up with no electricity and an outhouse in literally a goat barn in the Big Sur Mountains of California. And my mom was a pot farmer there. So, I think that I came out the chute Liberty. And I was always kind of rebellious against the system. I ran away from school early on. I got in a lot of trouble. I didn't like rules. I didn't like people telling me what to do. Later on, when in my teens, when I started voting, I would look at the vote. I would try to I thought it was a civic duty to vote. And I remember asking my grandma who she voted for, and she told me it was none of my business. And I think she might have been right about that. We sometimes wear our politics on our sleeves a little bit too much, maybe these days, and it ruffles feathers a little bit. But I was voting, and I thought this is the best America has to offer. It seemed like all my life I was voting for George Bush or Clinton or Bush, and I kept thinking this has got to be a joke. We have the illusion of choice. And I thought these people are selected for us. At a certain point, I realized that they were selected for us. And I got so bitter that I thought it was going to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. So it was going to be yet another Bush-Clinton kind of a thing. And, this was super frustrating to me. And early on, I was voting for I looked for the people that were interesting to me. And the first guy that really caught my attention was Ross Perot.
Oh.
And he was talking about the debt. And he was talking about how the debt was going to burden the generation of the future. And I was at that time the generation of the future. So it really lit my ears up that that I needed to pay attention to this. And I had also I had been in a car wreck when I was 15, and my grandfather was killed next to me. And part of that, I got a little settlement of money. And so I got interested in the stock market. And so I started really following economics at an early age. At 18 years old, I started trading stocks and that sort of thing. And so, I was going along, and the next person that caught my eye or my ear was this guy, Ron Paul. And he was talking also about the debt. And he was talking about another thing that I hadn't really heard before, which was this stupid thing called the Federal Reserve. Right. And I think it's very interesting that today is the day that the Federal Reserve was founded. I didn't know that tidbit, but that is quite a little tidbit. And I don't know that I should be celebrating today at all, given that is one of the most oppressive and coercive systems that the American government or even private companies have kind of, shoved onto us. So I still didn't, I knew I wasn't a Democrat and I knew I wasn't a Republican. And I didn't know really what I was. And so even though I had voted for Ron Paul, I guess I didn't notice that he was a libertarian. I didn't notice that the one time he was running as that. And it wasn't until I think around 2007, 2008, somewhere around in there, I took one of the world's smallest political quiz on Facebook. And I thought, oh, this will be a hoot. I wonder if it'll select whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican. And so I took the test, and I was all the way at the top of the chart in this thing called Libertarian. And I literally had to Google what is a libertarian, right? And when I was reading down it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh, I think I found my people. I found my people. Finally, I found my people. And so that was really the thing. And so then I was, in with Ron Paul, and then Gary Johnson. And Gary Johnson was the first time I ever donated any money to any political anything. And I was naive and thought he was going to win the election, and we were going to have Gary Johnson as president of the United States. And that was, I knew that these people had been chosen for us, but I didn't realize how rigged the system was against anyone else ever challenging for president of the United States. And so I think that's, I guess, my libertarian backstory. And so here I am today.
I mean, you basically started out as libertarian right out the hop, coming out of a pot farm, and then now you're running for presidential nomination. This is kind of awesome, by the way, Lars. So speaking of sort of economics, taxes is a big thing, especially with today's anniversary. So how would you describe your approach to taxes in the event that you are elected, in the inevitability that you are elected, to be butt down in the seat of power? How would you describe your approach to taxes?
Yeah, I think, as a libertarian, my North Star is no taxes, right? My ideal world would be that we wouldn't have taxation, or it just a very, very minimal amount to kind of keep the minimal functions of government going. I believe in a very minimal government. And I think what Dave was talking about earlier rings true, that's kind of the one thing that we all agree on, is that we're for limiting the state. Now, some of us are limiting the state down to no people, and then others of us want to limit the state down to like 3 or 4 people running the show, right? But we definitely want to limit the state. So with that being said, obviously, if I'm president of the United States, we're still going to have a Republican and a Democrat Congress, very likely. And so, pushing through my ideal, there's kind of like, the ideal is the North Star, which is no taxes, but then there's things that I think that we could do along the way. If the Congress came to me and said, Lars, the best we can do for you is to cut taxes 10%, I would take that because it would be getting me towards my North Star, right? And so one of the things that I, coming from a poor background and living on top ramen all my life and kind of struggling to make ends meet, I realize how tough it is for regular people in America to make ends meet, especially right now with the inflation that we have. And so one of the things that I think is really gross kind of taxation is FICA taxes, is payroll taxes. I think that really is kind of, the only thing really kind of worse than that is taxes on like groceries, right? Things that people really desperately need. So I would love to get rid of all payroll taxes. I think that they are just an abomination. And then finally, if I could really push the envelope, I was audited many times by the IRS after I sold my businesses. And, no one should have to put up with that crap. No one should have to live in fear of going to prison for misfiling a piece of paper or not having all the information available to them and that sort of thing. And we just waste so much time and energy on our coercive income tax system. And I want to see that abolished. I would love to see the IRS abolished. One of the things that is been before Congress for a long time and was introduced to me by, I believe, Gary Johnson, was the fair tax. And that is abolishing the 16th Amendment and replacing it with a consumption tax. It's not ideal, but it definitely gets rid of all the loopholes. It takes away the power from Congress to bestow favors to the rich and the corporate elites and that sort of thing. And I think that would go a long way to making things more fair in America and making less divisive situation. All the unfairness that we see causes a lot of division. When people don't feel like they're being treated equally, they get angry, and that leads to things like the BLM riots and the January 6th activities. And you can just tell, America right now is super pissed off all across the board. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, independent, whatever it is, we're all angry. And if we don't turn this ship around, I'm afraid that that anger is going to really boil over the next time and be much greater than the things that we saw earlier.
Oh, well, speaking of you achieving the office of the presidency, I understand that you have a specific strategy on how to get there, something about a single electoral vote strategy. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I was looking at Gary Johnson and I thought Gary Johnson was going to win the presidency. And then he got, whatever, a couple percent that he got. And I was like, wow, that didn't really seem to really move the needle. And no one really even knew who he was afterwards. Even today I'm on social media and I tell people I'm a libertarian and they're like, oh, lib, so you must be a liberal. Or, oh, you're just a MAGA who smokes dope, or whatever it is, right? And they don't really know what we're about. And so even though we've been around for 50 years, I think that hasn't gotten out the way that it needs to get out there. And so I have kind of come up with this idea of winning electoral votes. We're actually focusing now on several of them because we feel like they're achievable goals that we can win. And I think that nothing else could put libertarians on the map right now better than, imagine on election night, California is blue, Texas is red, Florida is red, New York is blue. What in the hell is this gold crap doing on the map? And they probably wouldn't even have the color for us. They would just be like, I don't know. And the thing is you need 270 electoral votes to become president of the United States. And with the situation we have right now, where people are so they hate the system, they feel like the system is completely rigged against them. And with the potential of Joe Biden and Donald Trump being the people again, people are fed up and they're looking for another way out, right? And so I think that right now there's not only the Libertarian Party, but there's other people coming in, independents and other parties, that we could actually steal enough electoral votes to deny both Joe Biden and Donald Trump the presidency on the first round. And that would send the election to the House of Representatives, the newly elected House, to decide who was president. Could you imagine the talking heads on mainstream media? I mean, this would go on for months and months and months, and all they would say is the libertarian people broke it. The libertarian people spoiled the election, right? And that's great, because I want everyone in America to find libertarian ideas just like I did by Googling what is a libertarian. If we can get everyone in America to Google what is a libertarian, we have a chance to grow those numbers like Dave was talking about, to get to those 10 million, to that 20 million registered libertarians, where we own a seat at the table and we can help steer the direction. Look, the Speaker of the House was ousted today. And it didn't take a lot of people to oust him, right? And remember, when he was being put in, there was only 10 or 12 maybe people in the House that were blocking that and were like coordinating that. So you don't have to have a large majority in order to steer the direction of the country. We need to just get a foothold in there. And I think that winning these electoral votes would help us do that. Okay,
that sounds like a solid plan, Lars. That really does. Now, unfortunately, we're running a little late today, and I apologize to everyone out there, and I apologize especially to you because you've been waiting very patiently. If people are interested in hearing more about you, your work, and the party in general, where can they find you? Sure.
So Lars24.com is my website, and that has policy issues and how to contact us. And of course, donations. We're needing donations to keep this ball rolling. And then on social media, Lars for President on Facebook, and on Twitter, which is now X, at Libertarian Lars.
I encourage everyone watching today, everybody here in the room with us today, to check out Mr. Lars Mapstead. Thank you very much, Lars. I'm going to bring Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to bring Larry Sharp back out here, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate us seeing Lars here and chatting, and so you can get to see a little bit about what he's talking about. He won't be able to be part of our debate, which would be super cool, but we do have one more person here who is also here. And if I can bring him up also, I hope we have. Do we put my glass? Is he available?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, look, he's already here. It is the one, the only Mr. Michael Termott. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's a joy to be with you, Larry. You are looking sharp. I love that jacket. If we could get that jacket together with my tie, I think we'd really have something.
Now, some people don't know this. I haven't worn a tie in over 10 years, so probably not going to happen with a tie piece, but I appreciate it, though. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Absolutely.
Well, I haven't worn a yellow jacket since 1976 either, but you know, we can change.
We could swap. I like that idea. I do love it very much. Mike, I'm glad you came here, and I want to focus on one thing that I think is kind of your world for a bit, to let everyone understand kind of where you have you have a lot of strengths, but a big strength, and that's in economics. Most people don't know who aren't familiar with you directly, how much you have dealt with economics, that you're someone who, has worked professionally in that field for a long time and at the highest level. Economics, obviously a big deal. Can you give me in your mind what is the number one issue that the average American needs to understand or grasp about economics? So is there a way that you could give us an idea of what you think is the number one issue that Americans should understand when it comes to economics?
Sure. If you boil it all down, Larry, the number one issue is our government takes too much of your money and spends it.
There we go.
So, and we should probably stop right there, right? What everyone needs to understand is that every penny that the government spends, whether at the local level, the state level, or at the federal level, and irrespective of how it finances it, whether it's taking it from you by borrowing it or taking it from you by taxing you, whether it's a consumption tax or an income tax or any other kind of tax, no matter how it's financed, every penny that any government spends is one of your pennies. They're taking it from you. They're taking it from your children, your grandchildren. One way or another, it's costing you. The true cost of government is not how much does it tax you, but it is how much it spends, because it spends of your money. And I think most Americans don't appreciate that. And they don't appreciate what the implication is for all the debt that the government is mounting.
Yes.
Too many Americans, I suspect, believe that debt is in some sense not as costly, but it is. It's going to cost you and me. It's going to cost our children and our grandchildren. And in this sense, it is not just an economic matter. It is a profound ethical matter. It's a real ethical problem, in my view, that our government is spending away our children's future.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of this event is about the kids. And I think you brought up a separate piece, which is it seems invisible, right? Particularly the idea of, well, you bring up inflation, right? These things to the average American seem like, well, it happens, right? It just happens. They feel it just happens. They don't get it. Or they blame the corporations, the evil, greedy corporations, for this inflation. One of those two things. How do we handle that issue, right? Because people don't get it. They think it's invisible, and clearly it's not. Clearly there's reasons behind this.
Clearly there are reasons behind it, and I think people are more interested in understanding those reasons than ever before, not only because inflation is greater, higher, more annoying than ever before, which it is, but also because it's a here we go again type of feel. We have been through boom bust cycles in the past. We've been through inflationary cycles in the past. And I think more Americans than ever before are tired of it. Enough is enough. What the hell is going on? Right. And it is the reason why I spend so much time talking about and the Fed. The reason Dr. Paul spent so much time talking about it is not because it's an easy issue for everyone to understand, but because it's an important issue. And it's important not only because of the way it affects everybody. Everybody hates inflation, so everyone ought to have a little bit of motivation to hear our story about why we need a structural change in how we conduct monetary policy in the United States. But I believe that ending the Fed is an important issue for us as libertarians because it is so emblematic of what is wrong with the rest of the government. We see presidents come and go, parties come and go, blue and red, change all the time. Yep. And yet our monetary policy, the Federal Reserve, continues. It lets us down. It fails us. We need structural change, not just changing the names at the top.
But you have a deal that you've been speaking about for a while here. I believe that's what you mean. Is it the Gold New Deal? Did I get that right?
You got it right. We talk about the Gold New Deal in a sense of sunsetting FDR's New Deal. We named the Gold New Deal after your jacket and my tie, and I think that that's the right way to go about it. It's also named after those single districts that Lars says we ought to be going after in Nebraska and Maine, right? The Gold New Deal is all about imposing America's values, not our masters in the government, not their values, right? America's values in determining a new relationship between us and our government. Right now, that relationship is defined by politicians, Republicans and Democrats, and the bureaucracy. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. All they care about is command and control. And that's why we have a relationship that stinks. It started with the New Deal, one might argue. Others might argue that it started right out of the box with the Constitution's inability to stand up for itself. But however you argue, how long it's taken us to get here, our government has gone off the rails. We need to reverse course. We need to fight our way back toward the Constitution. We need a new relationship. We need a Gold New Deal.
So let me jump on that if I could, right? Every libertarian listening here, everyone who's running for office, they're all going to say one way or the other, we're going to shrink government. We're going to tear down this, abolish that, remove this. In your world, as we move towards a more constitutional government, what are the first steps when it comes to government, federal government agencies? Is it the IRS? Is it the ATF? Well, what's the first steps?
The first step is to replace the heads of those agencies with libertarian-minded individuals. It is theoretically possible. It could be a libertarian-minded Democrat or Republican. If you can help me find one, it's more likely libertarians that are in the room presently, right? It takes replacing the leadership in order to winnow down these agencies because, as anyone knows who's spent as much time in Washington as I have, the first step in getting rid of functions of government and agencies of the government is to winnow down their footprint, their control, because that's where they get their political power. That's where they get their political influence. So you got to shrink that down, and then you can move legislation against them. There are specific things that we can do to shrink down their full-time equivalent personnel. There are things that we can do to shrink down their budgets. And once we get them under control politically, we can move legislation to sunset them completely. And as we all agree, there are specific agencies that have to go right away.
So let me push back on that if I could. What are some of those specific agencies that are at the top of your list? Obviously, there's a lot of them, but what are some of that at the top of your list?
Two categories. There's departments and there's independent agencies. The departments that are, I think we would all agree, are most annoying are the ones that don't even pretend to add any value. Those like the Department of Energy, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, which is actually, I don't think there's too many even Republicans who would argue it's anything but a net negative at this point. Those agencies have to go. Their behavior is completely unconstitutional. But there are independent agencies that are actually easier to get rid of. USAID, for example, the FBI. People don't realize how easy it would be to get rid of the FBI. You break it up into pieces. You move its alleged anti and espionage piece, for example, into the Defense Department. You farm out to the individual state agencies, the part of the FBI that goes after crime that is, after all, crime in every state already. And the piece of the FBI that goes after politicians, you sunset completely. Nobody is going to miss that. It has been so abused up until now, I would argue since the day of inception, right? That I think that the FBI doesn't have nearly the political backing as its directors have believed that it has. So there are certain agencies that would be relatively easy to go after right away and others that would require some hard lifting.
So let me the last piece on this. You're saying legislation. That seems like the heaviest lift of them all. Now I'm going to get people in Congress who are kind of bought into this system completely to get them to actually pass legislation to end these agencies. Seems like a almost impossible task. Am I wrong?
There are cases where it will be almost an impossible task. You're not wrong. You're seldom wrong, Larry.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
But there are things that we can do to shrink them, to winnow them down, and make them much less effective at imposing on us the values of the bureaucrats themselves and the politicians. And once that takes place, once its political power is debilitated, then you can go after them with legislation. But you're right. In the environment that exists today, very, very difficult to move legislation against them, but not impossible over the course of a 4-year libertarian-minded administration.
Excellent. Well, look, Mike, I'm going to have to run. We're going to have to start getting to debates and other things here. I'm sorry we were a little bit late here. Thank you for your patience. Tell people how they can get a hold of you and how they can see what's going on with what you're doing in your campaign.
They can't. It's a big secret. We've got no website, no social media, no phone numbers. Don't text me. No how, no way. Or you can go to MikeTremont.com. You can go to goldnewdeal.org. By the way, at those two websites, you can find my real contact information. If anyone feels like dropping me a text, my real phone number is there. You can reach out. Happy to talk to anybody who has either good advice or a mean comment. Bring it on. You can reach out there. You can read about the Gold New Deal itself in gory detail. You can read about the campaign. The campaign is big. It's robust. We've got 15 people on professional staff. We've got another dozen advisors. We've got volunteers and volunteer opportunities. So if anyone wants to get involved, I can guarantee it's a lot of fun.
There we go. I appreciate it. Mike, thank you so much for giving us your time. I hope to see you very soon.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. It was good to be with you and Lars. Take care.
So I want to bring up somebody real fast, if I could, before we go into our debate prep and our debate break. Someone who she helped put this whole thing together. She's the one who actually is the chair of the North New Jersey Libertarian Party. She's going to say a few words, trying to get you guys to step up and help out here, if I could. The one, the only, Ariel Shack.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we're so excited for our main event. We've been speaking with the candidates. They're all pretty cool, and we're so lucky that they flew into North Jersey. I don't think they knew that much about Jersey to know to stay. No, I'm joking. Jersey's awesome. But anyway, I wanted to talk just for us like a minute about one of the projects that we're doing in North Jersey and in New Jersey as a state. We have the Preempted Ordinance Repeals Project, where we are going from town to town to get rid of ordinances that have to do with street behavioral codes and street conduct codes. They are impeding on our rights left and right, and they're completely illegal. And we decided in North Jersey, instead of trying to get candidates into office, we would just go to the towns ourselves and push liberty there. So this is a project we're really excited about, and we're going to roll a little clip that we've got. Roll the clip. I can't see the video myself to know where it is, but I'll just talk about what's going on in North Jersey. So basically, we have we've gone to, I think, 46 towns that we've repealed the ordinances in. So basically, these ordinances are loitering codes that give the police the ability to give you a ticket literally for anything. Because with these codes on the books, they could just not like you and say, oh, here's a loitering code. You're not supposed to be here. And that is completely illegal. And we have already worked on it as a state and got rid of it. But the towns haven't got rid of it. And in court, they're still ruling on this. And even when we're going to towns to get rid of it, the courts are still dropping things to a loitering issue, which is really not the best practice and something we really want to get rid of. And what we need as a state is just bodies to come with us into the towns to get rid of these ordinances, because this is something that we need people feet on the ground. So if you guys can continue to do that, and if you guys can email me just the town that you live in New Jersey, and I will check, and John Paff, who is organizing this, who's the head of the project, will check to make sure that that they don't have an ordinance, and if they do, we can work with you to get you in front of the town council. We'll tell you what to say. This is a definite win. They can't say no because it's illegal, and we have so many things already drafted up to make it happen. We just need feet on the ground. Thank you.
So happy to have her here and doing all the work that she's doing. It's amazing. I was thinking about what Dave Smith talked about and about how we're trying to get more and more people. And it made me think of a story that I remember many years ago. Some of you know that I was a Marine for many years. Still, I'm in my heart always. Semper Fi, thank you, brother. And I spent some time in intelligence. And some time I spent there, I remember one time when I was there, we were talking about a specific situation. It was an ex-Army officer who was interrogated in Korea. And when he was interrogated in Korea, he was interrogated by a Chinese interrogator. And the Chinese interrogator was telling him how, great communism is and all these things. And the officer said to him right to his face, he said, look, you're never going to convince me that communism is good. It's never going to happen, man. He goes, look, this guy happened to be a West Pointer. He was from the Northeast. He was exactly the idea you would think of where he's a privileged guy, all the great stuff. He said, when I go back to my house, because I'm going back to my beautiful house, beautiful family, you're never going to convince me. The Chinese interpreter said to him, oh, I know I'm not going to convince you. I don't have to. All I have to do is get you to believe that your way isn't perfect. If I do that and I just crack that, you'll leave Korea. That was his only goal. Why do I tell you that story? Because we have a similar situation here with people who think their left-right paradigm or they're Democrat or Republican, or they're liberal or conservative, what it is the answer for everything, and no one else could possibly have any other answer. Our goal isn't to turn a Democrat or Republican into a libertarian tomorrow. I wish we could. That'd be awesome. Our goal is to just crack, just to get in there, so that they can go, you know what? Maybe that guy's right. Here's how you'll know if you're winning. You have a conversation with your friend, a conversation with a family member, and they go, well, maybe whatever. And then a week later, they go, you know that thing you said? I was thinking about that. If that happens, you're winning. That means you just cracked it. Now there's a chance for them to hear you, a chance for them to believe that we're right, a chance for them to move forward. That's what we're trying to do here. I hope you all see that. Guys, we're going to take a quick break as we get everybody up here, and then we're going to get right to our debate. Thank you. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Thanks.
You all have your 4 chits. All right. Any chits you don't use during the debate, we'll add on the appropriate amount of time for your summation. All right. Any questions?
No.
Check your mics.
Test 1, 2.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Check, check.
You're the podcaster, you know. So.
I am the podcaster for sure. Well, Michael Rectenwald also does a podcast.
I did not know.
Yeah.
I've had one in a time or two.
Oh, good. Okay, so good. Everyone's still seeing
We're still going.
Everyone saw the sausage being made. This is good.
Everybody, thank you so much for coming to our debate. I appreciate you all coming. just so you understand how this is going to work, we are actually going to do a 2-minute opening statement from all of the candidates. Then myself and Dan are going to ask questions. Every question that gets asked by us is either one that we selected or that came in from outside of us. Either one. That's who we're going to be asking. Either that came in from outside of us or that we selected. Either one. When we ask a question, what's going to happen is the person who's directed to at first will get 90 seconds to answer. There is a timer right there on the left, so you guys can see the person over there. That person will put their hand in the air when there are 10 seconds left and then close it when your time is done. Everyone will get a chance to answer for 90 seconds, no matter who was first asked. If someone wants to rebut outside of that, they may. Each of the candidates has a chit. They have 4 of them and may use up to 1 of them or up to all 4 of them to rebut for 30 seconds if they would like. After that, we will then go to questions that came to us from the internet. Some of them are directed to the individuals. Those questions directed to the individual will get 90 seconds to answer. The other 2 candidates may have a 30-second rebuttal if they like. At any point, they may have a rebuttal if they want to. If they don't use any of their chits, it will be put onto the end of their closing statement to have more time for a 2-minute closing statement. Any questions, guys?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Dan, you have the order. We'll start with a opening statement.
So Chase Oliver, beforehand we all drew straws. Chase Oliver won to go first. So Chase Oliver, opening statement, 2 minutes, sir.
So hello to folks in New Jersey. My name is Chase Oliver. I am running to be your presidential nominee. First, I want to say thanks for having me out here. This is a great event. But a little bit about myself. I was the 2022 U.S. Senate nominee last year from the state of Georgia. I did force the runoff that got national news and attention for the Libertarian Party when I made Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker have to do their whole thing over again, costing the government $70 million. But the reason why I did it is because there's better ways for us to select our people, namely ranked choice voting, and I had to break the system to show why it needed to be fixed. But a little bit about my history as a libertarian. I came to this party as an anti-war activist in 2010 because I had left the Democratic Party because Barack Obama had broken every foreign policy promise he had ever made. He promised to close Gitmo. He promised to stop the drones. He promised to actually talk to our enemies and end wars. And when he failed to fulfill any of those promises, I left the two-party system, wandered around the wilderness for a little bit until I found the Libertarian Party in 2010. Since that time, I have been an active libertarian. I have been a visible libertarian. I have been an activist libertarian. I've been involved, again, in the anti-war sphere as well as the criminal justice and immigration spheres, pushing for liberty-centric policy. I have been a vice chair and chair of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta. I've served on our state's ExCom. And as I said before, I've been a candidate twice before, first for the United States Congress to fill out the remainder of John Lewis's term. I got to introduce a lot of people in Atlanta to the word libertarian and to the ideas of libertarianism for the first time. And last year, I got to do so far what has been the honor of my political life in serving as the nominee for the U.S. Senate. In that race, I got to push bold libertarian policy positions. I actually got on the debate stage with a duopolist to their face and let them know that they don't even read the bills they vote on. They are just puppets of the leadership. And I like to call them out for that. I want to do that not just in one state. I want to do that across all 50 states. And I believe broadly that we are looking for a positive brand officer for the party, and I want to be that for us. Go to votechaseoliver.com if you want to learn more. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Rectenwald.
Hello, my name is Michael Rectenwald, and I want to thank the North New Jersey Libertarian Party for hosting this great event, and I want to thank my esteemed colleagues for coming as well, and hearing from our other colleagues in online. That was good. I am running as I'm running as a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. I am a libertarian. I have been for 7-8 years. I am an author of 12 books. I am a distinguished fellow at Hillsdale College. I am a former NYU professor, and I am also a writer and podcaster for the Mises Institute and a speaker at their events. So I have been vested in the libertarian movement for some time. Now, what I'm going to do with this campaign is this. I'm going to tell the truth. And the truth is this. There is no hope for a top-down takeover of the government and an imposition from the presidency onto the various agencies of the government, and the routing of these agencies, and the liquidation of various alphabet agencies, etc. That is not going to happen. What needs to happen is that we wrest power from the central government and vest it in the people at the local level. That is the only hope for our republic. And what I mean by that is, of course, we elect our sheriffs, we control our police departments, we control our school boards, we control the guns and educational apparatuses in our local communities. And we take over and nullify federal laws and dictates and mandates that are unconstitutional. Thank you. You can join me at wrecktheregime.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Joshua Smith.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to the Libertarians in New Jersey for having us out. Thank you to my colleagues for showing up as well. I appreciate it. First of all, before I get started, I want to say thank you to Larry for making that wonderful joke about me in the car door. I'm sure he spent several hours eating crayons inside of his podcast studio to come up with that. I would like to say I am your blue-collar, working-class candidate this year. I've been through all of the same terrible things that we've all felt over the last, my entire life. The inflation, the warfare, the drug war, the family law courts. I've been through all these same things that most of us in this room have felt. And I'm running to try and push back on that stuff. Now, I feel much like Michael Rectenwald. I think, there's no way we're going to have a libertarian federal government in 2024. That's just crazy to think about. But what we can do is we can use this campaign to go out and message to people about nullification. I think it's very, very important that we talk about taking over the local level and the state level and nullifying terrible laws from the federal government. That's absolutely important. But something else that we have a very important duty to try and do as the presidential candidate is get 5%. Just 5%. That's it. That's all we need to change the political landscape in America forever. Forever. Makes us a national major political party. It makes all of our ballot access requirements the same as the two old parties. It gives us federal matching funds, which, as a libertarian, maybe we don't take. But maybe we do for good. I don't know. I don't know who that is. But 2024, we have an opportunity like we did in 2016 to set the stage for 2028. And we have to do that now. We cannot drop the ball again like we did in 2016. Gary was great. I like Gary. But we had an opportunity to go against two of the absolute most hated presidential candidates in my lifetime. And we dropped the ball with 3.3%. We've got to do better. I'm promising to do that by doing a 50-state media tour and talking to the people that I represent, the middle working class, family people that are being the most hurt by these policies. Thank you so much. Go to joshuasmith2024.com.
Excellent. Great. So, Michael recommends first, correct?
So we started with Chase Oliver for the introduction, so Michael Rectenwald will be getting the first question.
Excellent. So I want to just say off the bat that of all the crayons, red is the tastiest. So
I prefer purple.
Yes, red is the tastiest. So yes. I want to ask the first question, if I could, to Mr. Michael Rectenwald. Right now, there is a huge push with people who are concerned about student debt, student loans. Huge issue. People are worried. People are talking about forgiving debt, changing debt, fixing the system, changing the system. What would be your policy dealing with both student debt and ongoing student loans? 90 seconds.
That's a great question. Thanks, Larry. And let me just say this, that having 25 years of experience as a professor, 11 of them very nearby here at NYU, other years at Duke and Carnegie Mellon, I'm pretty familiar with the issue. And the issue is this. The federal government, in lending and infusing money into the educational system, has inflated the price of education dramatically. And they have also added to layers of bureaucracy in these universities, which mirror the layers of bureaucracy in the state. So the answer is, of course, to get rid of the Department of Education entirely and to cut all federal loans and grants to universities, whether they be state, private, or otherwise. I happen to work for a college, Hillsdale College, that takes absolutely no federal funds, and they do very well. That is the kind of education that we need. As for students that are already indebted, once we eliminate the Department of Education, there's no receivership for the money. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Hold on, to be clear. So are you saying that since there's no receivership, that those loans are basically forgiven?
Well, I don't think they're forgiven. I can't say whether they're going to be forgiven. I would only say this. There can't be any more of them. We can't invest anymore. I don't know about forgiveness because I think this is unfair to taxpayers who have paid these taxes that have funded these students. So we've got a real problem. This is a conundrum produced by bureaucrats and statists. And this is something that, of course, they hand us a mess.
So hold on. So let me be clear. So
yeah.
You're not saying you want to forgive the student loans.
I don't think so, no.
You're just saying you want to stop.
Absolutely stop all of it. And then we'll see where the chips fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Josh, please go ahead. 90 seconds.
Yeah. So isn't it funny that the same people that want their student loans forgiven are now wearing the blockbuster Ukrainian flag all over their social media and saying we've got to continue to send money overseas all the time? And it's like, hey, if we kind of cut back on some of this foreign policy stuff, we might have enough money to take care of your schooling. But that's not the point. The point is that the government should not be in the education business at all. It never should have been in the education business. It subsidizes these things to the point of a no return. It's giving out predatory loans to 17 and 18-year-olds. I mean, in any other loan situation in the country, those 17 and 18-year-olds are not going to get a loan, because we know that they're not ready to have that kind of loan. It's a predatory loan. It's inflated entirely because of the subsidies from the federal government. The cost of tuition is so high you can never pay it out of pocket. And unfortunately, these people have been trapped in loans that they've promised to pay back, and they're going to have to pay them back. But we do have to get the government entirely out of the education business. There was never a reason for them to be there. As a homeschool dad, who is imparting this wisdom on my own children, and my wife, of course, is imparting this. She's the homeschooler. I'm not actually the homeschooler. I just want to make that clear before she kills me when I get home. But it is important that you impart these things on your kids so they don't grow up to take these predatory loans. But we've all had some kind of predatory loan in our life that we have to pay back. It's an unfortunate part of our own actions. But I think that we don't clear out debt. We stop giving out these predatory loans. We let the free market, or the consumer-driven market, I like to say. I learned that from you, Larry. The consumer-driven market handle these situations, give the kids, a loan that they can handle, and let these education costs come down just by getting the government entirely out of it. So,
okay.
Thanks.
Great. Chase, please.
All right, so we got to talk about the policy that's going to get the government out of these loans. So my campaign has a very detailed policy on education. First and foremost, I think we need to get government out of the student loan business. $1.7 trillion of student loans are backed by the federal government. This causes an artificial rise in tuition that other folks over here are talking about. So what we have to do is we have to ask that Congress bring us legislation that would, in my plan, it would make student loans currently interest-free. You'd be able to pay down the principal. This speeds up the process of which we get government loans off of the books. You then pair that with no new government loans. So as we take them off of the balance sheet, it allows more market forces to come in, and banks can actually start issuing loans on the worth of those degrees, not just based on federal money that's given out. So this is a way to get rid of, over time, it creates an actual transitionary period, so there's not a huge shock to the education marketplace. It gets the loans off the balance sheet. It allows people who are currently stuck only paying the interest rates because they can't afford anything else to actually start paying down the principal, and it gets the government out of the loan business. That will lower tuitions overall. This is a plan that could actually work if Congress was brave enough to bring that to a president. It's the policy that I'm putting forward, and it's hopefully the policy that we can inject into the discussion in 2024. And God willing, if we don't have a libertarian elected, at least the major party politicians can steal that good idea from us and put it forward, because it's something that will help students right now who are stuck in the student loan crisis. It will help student loans, or help students in the future with more affordable loans and more affordable cost of education, and it will get the government out of the student loan business once and for all, and that's what we need to be fighting for. Thank you.
So to make sure your answer is to remove not the loan, not the principal,
no,
but to remove the interest.
Yeah, just remove the interest rate so folks can pay down the principal and get it off the government's balance sheet, and doing that creates a progress where we're creating market forces getting in and lowering the cost of tuition.
That's it. Thank you. Dan. Wait. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say that I think all three of us would probably end the interest for student loans. It's obviously just a tax on kids that made bad decisions. So I just want to clear that up. I also believe the same thing. It's not a rebuttal to Chase.
That's fine.
Yep. Sounds fine. Great. All right, so we're going to stay in the realm of education, and specifically the federal intrusion in education. All right, so imagine you have been elected to be president of the United States. It happened, all right? It's a thing that's been done. How does your administration move from our current situation to your ideal? And I believe this goes to Mr. Josh Smith first.
Well, I think first of all, we've got to get rid of the Department of Education. Since the 70s, when this thing got instituted, we've seen the spending quadruple, probably quintuple, even higher. Test scores have largely stayed the same or gotten lower. Our education system is getting dumber with the intrusion of the federal government. It's not getting smarter. Anybody said that it's got smarter after the federal government is lying to themselves. We've got to get rid of the Department of Education. We got to get the federal government should, like I said in the beginning of the first question, the federal government should not be in the education business. The state government probably also shouldn't be in the federal or in the education business. Now, I have no control over that, but I think we're going to have a much more robust education system with the state handling these issues. I'm very lucky to live in Iowa. Okay, it's one of the greatest school choice states in the entire country. We homeschool. We don't even have to tell the government we're homeschooling. Unfortunately, we still pay property tax, one of the highest in the country, if you can believe that. Not higher than New Jersey, but high. It's shown us personally in my own community, in my own home, that we can build co-ops for education. Getting the federal government out of these things actually helps us achieve that at the state and local level. And then even more importantly, I hope to use this campaign to get people to run for their local school boards. You run for your local school board and you have the opportunity to change the education system in your community forever. And this is what our campaign is. It's a 50-state media tour and a 5% goal. And I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about homeschool a lot. Parallel education.
Thank you very much. The same question to you, Mr. Oliver. So how does your administration move from our current situation to your ideal?
Yeah, I think we all agree that the Department of Education needs to go. I think that's a libertarian boilerplate that we can all agree upon. And then what do we do and what do we advocate for once we get down to the state or more local level? I am inclined to believe that the fastest way to put market forces into education is to just ask that we fund students and not systems directly, the Cora DeAngelis model. It's been happening all over the country. We've seen school choice bills pass all over the country that's providing more educational freedom for parents, students, and educators. That's the people we often forget about. We always worry and we talk about parents having more choices for their students having better options for them to go to school. But let's talk about educators who right now, many of them are stuck in a broken public school model. They know they can teach history better than the curriculum. They know they can teach science or language or whatever better than what the public school is forcing them to teach and the models that they're forcing them to use. So we want to support education freedom across the board, and that involves market forces. So I would dissolve the Department of Education, and I would then use the bully pulpit to ask that governors continue the model of passing funding students and not systems. I think it is the best way to put more and more agency in the hands of parents and students as opposed to a government bureaucrat, whether it be in Washington, D.C. or in your local state house, what have you. So that is the model I would be pushing as president, in addition to, again, getting rid of the Department of Education and hopefully seeing that the Pell Grant model moves to a more private way to fund people going to college as opposed to a Pell Grant model that we have.
I just want to quickly follow up. So the Department of Education currently provides, and this is in general for all the candidates, provides about 10 cents for every dollar of state education funding. Is there a method to move away from that?
Yes, here's the problem. When they give us 10 cents, what they do is they give you 15 cents worth of regulation on the back of it. It actually costs the states more to take that money back. So when we dissolve the Department of Education, you're going to actually have more freedom for states to be able to act without all the regulation and red tape that the federal government puts on our backs for that 10%. So that when we get rid of it, it'll actually be better for the states.
I was specifically mentioned, so I just want to say that my good friend Rob back there has private school kids. They pay $10,000 a year to send their kid to private school, and they still pay $10,000 a year in property tax. So they're double funding the school, one school their kid doesn't go to, and the one school that their kid does go to. So it doesn't match. So the federal funding it doesn't mean anything. It's still being paid for. So,
Mr. Rectenwald, as an educator yourself, you probably have a very interesting take on this. So how does your administration move from our current situation to your ideal?
Well, I want to sort of reframe it, if I could, as how does our movement move from the current situation to our ideal? And I think, of course, the ideal is utter privatization. And this means not only private tuition, but also getting the state completely out of the realm of judging institutions and determining whether they meet qualifications. This is a process that every school has to go through, whether they're private or public. They have to meet state criteria, and that is an outrage. That should be gotten rid of. So we need not only to got the Department of Education, we need to got all of the agencies that approve schools for their curriculum. Those curriculums should be treated at the local level and controlled by teachers and parents at the local level. And I would also add, one of the main things that the federal government is doing to infringe in education is an agenda that it is pushing. It is pushing all kinds of ideologies into the school, pumping them directly from the White House. If you look at the EEOs, you'll see this. The EEOs, you'll see that in executive orders, Biden administration's pushing transgenderism, wokeism, and all kinds of other ideologies into the school to control the student mind. Thank you.
And thank you.
I just want to quickly. So yeah. So I want to quickly just say, the main thing about funding students, not systems, disallows the state from making those determinations. The consumer, the parent, should be the ones making that determination when they choose the school for their kid. And the best schools are going to succeed. They're going to continue to thrive. Other schools will adapt to their systems, and the schools that fail will fall by the wayside and fall away. And we don't have that option with the public school model. The Atlanta public school system is failing. It is terrible, and it doesn't fall by the wayside because consumers don't want it, because we don't have choice in education. When we create that choice in education, we're going to provide that market incentive for success.
So also we asked the candidates to send us questions that they wanted us to ask. So I picked one of them. This one goes to you, Chase. How is the federal government impacting the family unit, and what actions can be taken to increase the prevalence of two-parent households?
Well, honestly, I'm going to say this. I don't think that the federal government should be planning your two-parent household, or really any household at all. I would seek to remove any taxes or subsidies regardless of any kind of status, whether you're a family or not. People should be paying low taxes. The government should be out of your business regardless of your family unit. I think the best way we can promote families in this country is to promote more choices for families, more choices when it comes to education, medical care. Basically, any option, parents should be the best advocates for their kids. That's the best kind of family unit, is where a family is making nearly all the determinations for that family and not having the government do that. And so the best way the government can be pushing family values, as it were, and there's a lot of different family values. There's a lot of different kind of families out there. But the best way to do that is for the government to get out of the way of peaceful people living their lives. And so if you're not harming anybody, causing force, fraud, coercion, theft, or violence, the government really shouldn't be trying to socially engineer your family. And there's always been a family structure that's existed before government even did. And it's a natural state of things to have kind of parental units in the house and to have families. But I don't think we need to have the government forcing or trying to impose one way or the other. I think nature will take care of that.
So let me give a little pushback if I could. I feel like, did you want to say something?
No, I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
I'll wait till you're done, Larry.
Okay.
All right.
What you just said was get government out.
Yeah.
Got it. But the government actually is supporting many families right now financially. That's what's happening now. They're actually giving lots of money to families right now. Are you saying also stop that money also, or just stop with the? Are you saying stop with just the coercion, the ideas, or also stop with the money also?
Well, in the minarchist ideal, the government wouldn't really be involved in one way or the other. Like in the true libertarian ideal, the government would be out of that business, and we would allow culture to work on its own regard. We don't need government to be forcing culture one way or the other. I'm inclined to believe that people will act in their best interest. They will raise their families with love,
so the money
with or without government coercion. Yeah, over time, yeah, we absolutely have to remove the welfare state. I don't think that's controversial among libertarians.
No worries, I understand. Go ahead, Josh.
I want to say, so since 1975, when Gerald Ford signed into law the Title 4D Act of the Social Security, or the Title 4D of the Social Security Act, we've seen fatherless homes increase tenfold, more than tenfold. It's absolutely one of the worst crises we face in America right now today. 81% of homeless and runaway youth are from a fatherless home. 78% of violent youth offenders sitting in jail right now are from a fatherless home. 80-something% of all school dropouts, fatherless home. And it's all undeniable stats that have come in since 1975 with the Title 4D of the Social Security Act being signed into law by Gerald Ford. That has got to go right away. It incentivizes states to break apart families. We're basically telling the state for every 66 cents you spend tearing apart a family, we're going to give you $1 back from the federal government. It is horrible. It's wrong. It's unconstitutional. It's wildly immoral. And it's got to be stopped today. That's the number one problem we face as a nation when it comes to families today. It's got to stop.
Okay, you still get to answer the question in a minute too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Shoot, I thought you said it was just for Chase, so I was like, I got to get my turn.
Started with Chase.
That's cool. We got more.
It's actually my turn, right? Do you want the shit
I got
back?
more to
We can
say.
get it back to you.
I got more to say.
You got a little tick on credit there. Okay.
All right. Well, let's just be very clear about something here. The state has a vested interest in dissolving the family. There is no question about the state doesn't want the family unit to exist. And why is that? Because the state lives on dependence, and it needs dependence. And what it does to support those dependents is it robs other people in order to pay these dependents and ingratiate them to the state so they vote for more welfareism, the state grows in size, and the robbed have no real recourse. That's what's going on. And so social welfare is a result of the state attempting deliberately to erode the family unit. And so are some other things I will add. For example, the promotion from the state itself, now from the government, of transgender ideology, which is meant to dissolve the ideas of man and woman, and likewise husband and wife, and likewise the family unit. Excuse me, I'm talking.
Go, please.
It also, this is all about eroding the family unit. This is not only coming from the state, it's actually coming from NGOs as well. Non-governmental organizations like the World Economic Forum, who's been driving agendas like this to depopulate the planet. This is all real stuff. So you'll read about it in my book, The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty. Thank you.
I just want to say this. I'm a member of the LGBT community. Nearly every trans person I know is part of a family. They raise kids all over the country. And they are not trying to dissolve the family unit. They are just trying to live their lives as adults and live their lives, and they're not doing that. I know many parents of trans kids. I know many trans people, and no, they are not trying to dissolve the family unit. I have friends who right now in Iowa are families who are raising trans people who are raising families, and they're doing so in a loving two-parent household. And so I would say that to say that they're just trying, that is gross collectivism.
No, that's not what I said.
Hold on, use your chit if you want to. Go ahead.
That's not at all what I said.
Before we go on,
I said that there is an agenda to do this. I never said trans people were trying to dissolve the family. The state is actually promoting it on purpose in order to do that. And they don't want any buffers between their power and the state.
1 second. 1 second.
I'm not talking about dictating anything. I'm talking about the federal government funding this. And all that funding should end. That's what I'm saying. I don't care what people do. The state should not be supporting it on purpose.
Excellent. You can have her come back now. I just want her to come back at the right time. She interrupted. If you can go get her, I don't mind bringing her back in. So we make sure we have the right time. So, yes. Okay. Josh, did you want to answer that question?
I mean, you did already address.
That got real fun for a minute, didn't it? All right.
Josh actually did not answer the question. He used his chit for 30 seconds.
I did give a big portion of what I wanted to say. Title 4 defunding is absolutely, it's immoral. It's destroying families. It's undeniable statistically that it's destroyed families. You can look at all these statistics. What I'm saying is backed up by statistics. It's all really big time started in 1975 with the institution of Title 4D. But there's so many other things as well. There's, the state goes community by community by community trying to figure out how to break apart families, whether it's the drug war, whether it's the war on self-defense and guns. I mean, these are all things that have been planned out by a government to keep us weak, to take fathers out of homes. That's exactly what the drug war was created to do. We're sending our kids off to public schools for 8 hours a day. They're teaching them whatever they want and not telling us about it. I mean, there's so many things working against us as parents to try and split our families apart. It's almost so frustrating and overwhelming that nobody wants to handle these things. But the best thing that we can do, and Title 4D's got to go. If you guys are crazy enough to put me in the White House, it's going first day one, done. But what the best thing you can do is have somebody like me go around the country and tell people that they can run for school board. They can run for their local sheriff. They can arrest federal agents who come into their town to enforce federal laws. You can do these things. All of you in this room can do these things. And we've got to have somebody who's going to go around the country and tell people that they have the opportunity to do these things. It's not very hard. So that's it. Thank you.
I'll ask for 30 more seconds.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say that, one thing I wanted to add to my introduction is that we do need somebody that can go around the country, that can reach a broad audience, and that can introduce these ideas and get people to run at the local level to wrest power from the central government and invest it in the people. But I'm saying that we need somebody that has a voice well beyond the Libertarian Party. I'll have a course coming out by Hillsdale College that will reach 6 million people in the next couple months. I've reached millions of people on television, on Tucker Carlson today, and tonight, and other shows. So, I think I'm the person that has the voice outside of the echo chamber of the Libertarian Party to draw people in.
Michael, thank you. And we did have someone from the audience. We're done with this question. Did you want to say something? I wanted to make sure it's the right timing. That's all.
I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that human rights has nothing to do, like what you were talking about.
Who's you? Sorry, who is you?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm actually off camera for a reason.
Okay.
But the thing is that you have no right to dictate.
I didn't say I would dictate.
Hold on. Let her
The entirety of you.
Mike, let her finish. Just let her finish. Say your piece, please.
They'll be able to hear me.
Go ahead.
You are not to say anything about my gender, my choices, or my body, period. That is a message.
So your message is...
Regardless of my gender.
Yeah, I want to reiterate yours.
Your goddamn business.
Let me reiterate what you're saying.
You want certain rights.
Ma'am, I'm trying to reiterate with
a mic. I'm trying to reiterate. You're saying that no one should have anything to do to say about your gender or your sexuality, regardless of what your gender or sexuality is. Is that what you just said?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to get out. I wanted to make sure I showed you respect. Thank you. Does anybody in the panel want to address that?
Yeah, I do. I never said anything about controlling anybody's gender selection or choice or behavior. That is utterly up to a person. 18 years of age and older should determine whatever identity they want to adopt without any imposition by the state.
But
okay, that's good.
The state is actually funding this on purpose. That's what I'm saying. And that should stop too.
No worries.
Should have no business at either end.
Thank you, Mr. Rectenwald. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask Mr. Rectenwald a question on that point, and briefly, do you feel that you'll be able to, assuming you get the nomination, express that idea of the coercive ideas coming from the executive office separate from imposing cultural or social issues on people that are of a gender or sexual minority? Or do you feel you have the ability?
Absolutely. I think I'm a libertarian at heart all the way to the core, and that means that I respect other people's expressions of anything that they want to express as long as they don't violate the NAP. I have nothing to do with that at all. I'm disinterested with reference to it, actually.
Okay, let me be fair then. Let me give both Josh and Chase a chance if they want to address that. Josh, do you want to address that at all?
I don't have any issue with what people want to do as an adult. I've said that several times. Like, look, if you want to skin graft a wiener to your forehead, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't care. As an adult, that's your choice. I think that the child thing is being pushed a little too far, and we need to hold our healthcare professionals and mental health care professionals specifically accountable for those things. But as adults, no, I have not.
Chase, do you want to address this?
Yeah, I believe that ultimately medical decisions are between a patient and a doctor, and when you are, when you're under the age of 18, that should be something that a parent is the advocate for. I think surgeries over 18 is fine, but I believe that there are, I was a gay teen, trans teens do exist, gay teens do exist, they do exist in the world. And I would say that government really shouldn't be fighting a culture war. As a candidate, I've always called for a cultural ceasefire. I believe that the government shouldn't really have one say or the other. Really, when we do that, when government gets involved in culture, it'll inevitably lead to a backlash because people feel offended or they feel like government's trying to tell them what to do. I think culture can progress at its own level, and that's what the government position should be, is get the government out of culture wars. Cultural ceasefire. I'm a libertarian. I hate all wars, and that includes culture wars.
Excellent. Thank you guys for that.
Right,
Dan, go ahead, please.
That was exciting, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And for the audience at large, thank you very much. All right, so specifically, and going from a very controversial issue to a very non-controversial issue, I'm sure. Specifically, what measures would you produce to address the problems being encountered at the Mexican border? And I've sort of lost track of where we were.
I'm pretty sure this starts with Michael.
Okay, Michael Rectenwald. So I'm going to reiterate. What measures would you propose to address the problems being encountered at the Mexican border?
Well, I think, the immigration issue, of course, is a thorny conundrum for libertarians who don't advocate straight open borders or, no states borders, etc. But listen, the real borders would, in a perfect private property society, the only borders that would exist would be the borders of property. So in that case, of course, anybody that was let into a private property would have to be invited in. They couldn't just barge in uninvited and start sleeping on my couch, for example. Although my kids have done that. But I would also say that we don't live in that world. We live in a world where there's so-called public property, which is a real misnomer if I ever heard one. The assumption is that the state owns public property and likewise should be able to determine who can come into that public property and who not. I don't buy that at all. I believe citizens should control so-called public property and treat it like a kind of private property, which they would hold individually if it weren't for public property at all. So, and then I would say that the immigration issue then needs to be determined at the local level as far down as possible. That is, it's a regional matter. If California wants to have complete open borders with Mexico, they should have the right to follow that prerogative. But if some part of California doesn't want to have that unfettered immigration, they should have a right to forbid it. The more local you get, the closer you get to seeing the crystal clear picture that we're dealing with this public property, which is really property that's paid for by taxpayers. And that really is shared owned property, and it shouldn't be public in the first place, but it is. So we have to deal with this conundrum, and I think it's brought to the lowest level.
Thank you, Michael. Please, thank you. Yes, that's okay.
Oh, I'm going to say some things that are very widely unpopular with libertarians, but the crisis at the border is absolutely unsustainable. We cannot have 2 million people flooding into our country every quarter. It's unsustainable. We're not set up. We don't have the infrastructure. We're seeing it all over the country where they're shipping them to these sanctuary cities. They don't have room for them to sleep. They're sleeping on the streets. It's disgusting. It's more than just a crisis at the border. It's a humanitarian crisis. And honestly, I'm not 100% positive it's not being funded by some outside source. I've never seen it in our lifetime. We've never seen it in our lifetime like this. It's gotten really bad. Okay, I totally agree that all borders should be private property borders. I agree. But we have to, as libertarians, unfortunately, live in reality. We can't live in our theoretical ANCAP society in our head. It's really nice to have that as our North Star. I would like to get there. I would like to get to a place where everybody who comes here because they want to be productive members of their community, work, and not take the welfare magnet, and not sleep on the streets, and not commit crimes. But we have to have some kind of vetting process. We've got to make I do agree that there should be a streamlined way to become a citizen of the United States. I think our system is completely wildly outdated. We've got to end the welfare magnet, first of all. We've got to make sure that the people who are coming here, first of all, don't hate us, don't hate our culture, don't hate our way of life. Also want to come here and be productive and do productive things and not live off of tax money. And that's the problem, right? We're living in a giant collective in the United States right now.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.
Anyways.
Thank
Thanks.
you, yes.
Okay. You didn't cut him off, Larry.
I did too.
After like 30 seconds longer. Okay.
So here's
Actually,
the thing,
Chase, before you begin, if we could ask the timekeeper to come to the middle of the room so we have a little bit easier time seeing. Thank you.
Hey, so, broadly speaking, my immigration policy is an Ellis Island immigration policy. I do understand that there are tens of millions of people in this country right now without documentation. There are more people who want to come across the border and work. I would say, statistically speaking, they do want to come here to work. They actually create large numbers of small businesses. They are a very productive part of our economy. We need immigrants to come in this country and work. The way we have to do that is we have to streamline the system which would they come in here. An Ellis Island system says if you're not sick and you're not wanted for extradition for a crime that we'd have to send you back for, you should be able to just come in here and work. We should be allowed allowing that. I understand the notion that we have to get rid of the welfare state as well, but I believe that in a liberty-centric policy, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can respect the sovereignty of people who want to just come in here and work, be human beings who want to do the job. And honestly, if we had a system where you could Ellis Island in or out, you'd have a lot more seasonal employment. You'd have a lot more people who would come here, work during the harvest season. They would take their money back to their families back home and be able to prosper back where they live, creating seasonal employment. But the truth is we have to simplify the system that allows people coming here. It's the largest, worst kind of big government is if you want to see the process to get a work visa or even become a citizen in this country. We can streamline both of those things and allow the market to determine when work comes in this country. And over time, as you do get rid of the welfare system, I guess there's a magnet for some people, but most people who come to this country come here to work. They come here to prosper. They don't walk thousands of miles to come here and just take welfare. They do a lot of work. And trust me, I know a lot of immigrants. I live in Georgia, an agricultural state, and I can tell you right now that farmers across my state see the wealth, or they see the value, rather, of immigrant labor, and they understand why we need to have it. Thank you.
Excellent. Michael, you wanted to do 30 seconds?
Yeah, I wanted to sort of add something here, and that is to say, it is not enough simply to add economic value to the country. That value is not determined objectively like that. It's a subjective thing depending on what people want. And so value is always determined subjectively. That's one thing. But the other thing is there is, as Josh pointed to, there's a global agenda here to flood and this country and Western Europe and to overrun it.
Michael, you can use another one if you want. If you want to keep going, but your 30 seconds is up.
Okay. I'll hold it there.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I want to go to our next question if I could. I want to go to Josh with this one, if we could start here with this one. This one is understanding that we have, as the United States, massive debt. And not just that, we have a deficit. So we keep going into more debt. How in the world can the federal government make taxes fairer in any way you want to define that term fair? How can we make taxes fairer, better for Americans, recognizing we have so much debt and massive deficit?
Larry, first of all, there is no fair tax. Period. I'm sorry. If you can't voluntarily fund a project, that project shouldn't exist. Period. Plain and simple. That's how it's got to work. We've got to dissolve the IRS. I understand that on day one I can't go in and abolish the IRS. I can send 70% of IRS agents home for good. I can move the rest of those agents, that the max majority possible, to mailrooms and maintenance departments across the country. Whatever's left, we can use to help us auction off ATF gear and FBI gear and all this great gear that we can use to pay down the debt, and we can stop spending on war, period. We have spent so much money on war in my lifetime that could have done all the wonderful things that the progressives think they should be getting for free without creating any more debt. The Federal Reserve continues to inflate. They have a huge counterfeiting machine that they use to extract our wealth and rob us blind. Okay, the government is centered around stealing your money, and they're creating a situation where we're not going to have a middle class. And we've seen this in other countries, and we've seen what happens when you're standing in the bread line waiting for your bread with a bag of money because your dollar's not worth anything anymore. If we don't take immediate action on monetary policy, this country is going the way of Venezuela. That's where it's going.
I do want to push back a little bit if I could.
Sure.
Right. I get what you're saying. Are you saying that when we abolish the IRS, that when we do that, there is no more taxation? Is that what you're saying?
I am going to abolish the Tax Act. We're done with that. I would redress and address Congress, and hopefully we could find a way to amend the 16th Amendment, get rid of it. But I'm getting rid of the income tax right away.
So income tax goes away.
No more capital gains, no more estate, no more payroll tax. We're done with that. That is so immoral to steal money from people's hard labor. You're working 2 hours a day or more for the federal government every single day.
So then let me keep pushing if I could. So we're going to do that. We still have, when we get rid of that, we still have a deficit. We still have debt. Are you saying you would then you would sell off the ATF sell off things to pay for
listen,
that?
We're going to do the same thing to the ATF and the FBI that we did to the IRS. We've got to get these organizations down to such a small level. They only have time to focus on the things that they were supposed to focus on in the beginning. No more infiltrating Catholic groups and going after soccer moms as domestic terrorists. But yes, we're going to auction off. First, we're going to auction off ATF gear. We're going to bulldoze the ATF building. We're going to build a dog park in memoriam there. But we're going to take that money money, and we're going to start. Hopefully, my goal is to have user fees. If you have to use the federal government, you can pay the federal government.
Okay.
But we're going to auction off land. We're going to auction off gear. We're going to auction off equipment. We're going to save so much money by bringing all of our troops home and closing down military bases. We're going to be able to pay off the national debt very quick.
Okay, Michael, you can get to answer the question also if you want to wait till you answer it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll wait to answer it.
Okay, great, good.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So when we're talking about debts and deficits, we do have to be realistic. And like you said, there's no truly fair tax. So I do believe the consumption tax is a better way than doing the income tax, because you do choose when you're purchasing and that level. But what we do have to do is we have to actually reduce the size and scope of government. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to pay down the debt tomorrow. Regardless of what Donald Trump says, there was nothing he could have ever done that would have the debt paid down in 8 years. That's not the way it works. We don't need to be thinking about the next financial quarter. We have to be thinking about the next quarter century. We actually have to put ourselves on a path towards paying down the debt to create increased prosperity for our kids and grandkids. Selfishly, I want this because I want to be able to retire and not have to, be living in squalor with an economy that's just tanked. So I want to make sure that my nephews and nieces have a world where they can work and be prosperous and grow in. And so to do that, we actually do have to reduce deficits and debt, and that involves tackling entitlements. Over time, we have to remove ourselves from Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. These are the largest drains that we have in our economy. We cannot, again, do that with a flick of with a snap of our fingers, but we have to come up with a position that over time gets us removed from these entitlement programs. Otherwise, we will never get out of the debt hole we're in. No matter how much we tax, we could tax everybody 100%. We're never going to get it done. And so what we do is we reduce the size, scope, and government. As we do that, we reduce the rate of taxation until eventually we get to a monarchist state. That is the ideal. Again, that's not going to happen overnight, but that's what we have to work towards. That's the idea we have to strive
let me push
towards.
back a little bit on you too. So what you're saying, if I get it right, is you're okay with also ending the income tax, but replacing it with a consumption tax, or you want to do consumption tax and then lower income tax?
Oh, no. Get rid of the income tax completely and you replace that with a consumption tax. The income tax is by far the worst way to tax people because you're taxing based on productivity, not on consumption.
Got it. So remove the income tax, replace it with a consumption tax.
Yes.
Now, is that consumption tax going to be too expensive for people? They're going to be upset that you're doing consumption tax, or
well,
no?
Here's the thing. When you have a consumption tax, you have a hard number of a percentage, and you can go to the Congress and you can say, hey, you're at 28. We want you at 25. Get us to 25. We're at 25. Get us to 21 and lower it. It's a very real number that the actual voter can see, the consumer can see, as opposed to the income tax system where there's all kinds of nooks and crannies, giveaway subsidies that allow for hiding money and hiding that prosperity.
Great. Okay. Michael, please.
Yeah, I mean, since we're on Fantasy Island here, I would actually get rid of the federal government in one fell stroke, but that's not what's going on here. I would say, look, what we're really going to do is either lead a movement to do something on the ground, or we're going to end up doing nothing. We need to lead a grassroots, ground-up movement of localism, of decentralization and nullification. The rest of this is just pure delusion at this juncture. Let's be real. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, you're not. That's not happening. What's possible here is actually grassroots, ground up, decentralized, taking control of local governments, getting the federal government off our backs, and eventually being able to preempt their exploitation of us through taxes by communities that totally resist paying it. Whole communities, not just individuals who are then targeted and singled out.
Hold on. Wait till your time. So wait for your time.
Before you go on, we will be taking audience questions at the end.
We'll deal with it, yes. So let me give you a little pushback, too. I gave them both. I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback, too, before we go, Josh. I'll let you go, but let me a little pushback, too. Ready. I felt like what you're saying is just beginning to shut down the government, don't deal with the taxes at all. Did I miss that question?
What I'm saying is that I don't believe in this top-down thing that the white knight is going to ride into D.C., get rid of this, get rid of that. That's not happening, and that's not what I'm running for. I'm running to build a movement of people who are on the ground at the local level, taking over their local governments, police officers, sheriff's office, as communities finally resisting the income tax themselves by refusing to pay it, disallowing the exploitation of the state.
Got it. That's clearer. Thank you. Okay, great. Now your 30 seconds, Josh. Go ahead, please.
Oh, sure. I just want to, I'm going to come back down from Fantasyland, okay? Listen, there's two goals here. One is to get 5% in the presidential election. To do that, we're going to have to talk to normal people that have never heard these ideas before. And that means we have to tell them, if they elect us to the presidential, the executive branch of the federal government, what we would do if we were to get into the federal government. It's very important that we talk about policy as well. Don't get me wrong. Nullification, nullification, nullification. We've got to get people into those positions. But we have to talk to normal people to get 5% so that we can change the political landscape, so that we can set a stage for 2028. If we're not going to do those things, please leave. Please leave. We have got to get 5% in this presidential election. We're only going to do that by talking about our policies.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Good. Dan, go ahead, please.
All right, so this is the final prepared question. Afterwards, we'll be taking questions from online, if we can get them prepared for us as well. We'll also take a couple of questions from the inside. So if you have questions for the candidates, please think of them now. All right, so the final question is going to, I believe...
This one starts with Chase, I believe.
We will. We're
going to do all this question.
Final prepared question.
We have one more prepared question.
So the final prepared question that we have
Chase, right?
is for Chase.
I guess, yeah, we'll go with me, whatever.
Yeah, I think so. Didn't we start this last one with you, Josh?
Started this
yes.
Yep.
Chase, now, yeah.
So this is on inflation. Inflation has caused incredible pain in everyday people's lives. In last year, it was 9% annualized. This year, it's about 4.5% annualized, and that's just what they're publishing. What does your administration intend to do about inflation, and how does it relate to your tax plan?
So first and foremost, we have to get back to a sound monetary policy. We have to stop the policy of the Fed just printing dollars out of thin air, because that's the number one way that we're inflating the dollar. We're just adding more to the pie. We're making each pie slice smaller, and that is devaluing everyone's dollar. So we have to educate the public on what the Fed is doing, and ultimately in the Fed. In regards to other ways to combat inflation, get spending under control so you can cut taxes and get more money in people's pockets so that they actually spend more and create more, consume more in the economy, and that's going to create more market prosperity, because the more people have to spend in a free market economy with free market businesses as opposed to being robbed from the government, robbing Peter to pay Paul, the broader amount of prosperity you're going to have, the more you'll get the economy under control. But it comes down to just ultimately getting our money back to either being valued and backed by something like gold, an actual physical thing, and ultimately we can decentralize our money away from governments. This is why I like things like Bitcoin, because it allows us to take our money out of the government's hands and put it into the blockchain, and keep it away from the federal, from the Fed and doing what it's doing. I prefer. Ultimately, the ideal would be to completely decentralize money from government altogether over time. But if we're going to have government-backed money, if we're going to have the dollar, it needs to be backed by gold or some other finite resource. Come up with your finite resource, come up with a value for it, back the dollar to it, and let's get back to realistic monetary policy as opposed to what we've been doing since the 70s, which is just inflating dollars out of thin air and making it ruinous for households all across America.
Mr. Rectenwald, same question. So what does your administration intend? I know that we're in fantasy land right now, sir.
Partly.
What does your administration intend to do about inflation, and how does it relate to your tax plan?
Well, I mean, what has to happen is to repeal the legal tender law completely. This is ridiculous. So get rid of legal tender law and then have competitive currencies and competitive banking and no more monopoly over money. This monopoly game over money has to end. But we can begin to end it by forming parallel economic structures and orders of exchange and using other parallel currencies now, not waiting for the Federal Reserve to be abolished. This can be done, and we then erode the power of the federal government by local and cross-local exchange using parallel currencies that are available to us: Bitcoin, monetary gold, other types of currencies that people will accept. Basically, it depends on who accepts it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give two answers here.
We'll pick that up afterwards.
Yeah, I'll give it. Yeah, I could give it to you. You wanted this question over them?
Yes, please.
Okay, here you go. Okay, so I'm going to give two answers. One is actual practical policy. The other one is fantasy land, okay? Here's my practical policy. My practical policy is you can get into positions in your state and local level that totally nullify any monetary law the federal government tries to put forth. They're almost all unconstitutional, and you have that right with the 10th Amendment. Now we're going to go into, well, it's still practical. Please invest in Bitcoin. It's not just, listen, I'm not just talking about parallel economies here. I'm talking about alternative currencies. These are an alternative currency that circumvents the federal government today. It's already got the framework. Okay, when we end the, listen, it's not about if the central banking system fails. It's about when. And when it does, there will be blood. Everyone will hurt unless you've already got something set up on another framework that helps, and Bitcoin does that. Bitcoin fixes that. It's parallel to all kinds of things, the food freedom movement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's Fantasyland. We're going to go to Fantasyland. Practically, we can't end the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is a giant money printing machine used to steal and rob from you through a tax called inflation. That's what it does. That's its whole point. It uses that money to continue bringing us to forever wars and all kinds of other things, okay? What I would do, because we can't get rid of the federal charter as a president. You don't have that power at all. Congress has to do it through an act of law. But you can pick the federal chair, the Federal Reserve chair. So I would nominate Ron Paul for Federal Reserve chair and let him go in there with his bat and slash and hack that thing to death. Thank you.
Good way of start ending that one, Josh. I appreciate that. So those are all prepared questions. Now we want to go into either audience questions that have been submitted to us, or even questions here from people here in the room. So do you want to start with the ones we got in, or do you want to start with the room?
Let's start with the ones that were sent in beforehand.
Okay.
All right.
So let me begin with this one was sent in before. This is for everybody, but I'm gonna start with Mr. Rectenwald, but it's for everybody. Question number 1: do you support putting back the deleted platform provisions concerning abortion? 1.5, abortion, recognizing that abortion is a sensitive issue and that people can hold good faith views on all sides, we believe that government should be kept out of the matter, leaving the question to each person for their conscientious consideration. That was the platform. It was removed. Should be put back. What do you think, Mr. Rectenwald?
No, I don't think it should be put back. I think the abortion issue, of course, is one of these other thorny conundrums in the Libertarian Party. But I think it's been we've seen some progress as the Roe v. Wade was repealed, and if this has been sent back to the states. So really, this needs to get sent back, not just to the woman, but to the family. And that's where this should be decided ultimately. That being said, it's up to the family whether they do this or not, whether they decide to abort something or a baby or not. That being said, I am pro-life individually. I think we need to also have a campaign of conscientiousness with reference to this. I believe that abortion violates the NAP, that this is a person. Just because they're little doesn't mean they aren't a person. And they have the right to life like you and I. Thank you.
Okay. Josh, please.
Much like Michael, I believe that the fetus has the right to life just like every other living, breathing being. And to kill that is horrible. It's a terrible thing. No, I don't think the platform should be back. And let me tell you why. First of all, it was such a divisive wedge issue in the party, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Second of all, that has been kicked back to the states. So the states, here's what people don't understand. The Libertarian Party state committees have their own bylaws and their own platform and their own constitution. You have the opportunity to put whatever you want in your state platform. Why should a national party that works at a federal level have something in their platform that the federal government has no business being in whatsoever anymore? It's over. It's been kicked back to the states. So there's no reason for it to be in there. I'm vehemently pro-life. I think that every person that has a heartbeat should have the same right to life that I have. I think it's a violation of all kinds of terrible things to kill a child. I call it fetal homicide. But it's not a thing that the national party should be dealing with at all. No.
Okay, great. Chase.
So I'm going to let the delegates pick what they put in the platform. But I am pro-choice. And I am pro-choice because I do believe in the concept of bodily autonomy. You do have the right to live, but you do not have the right to live based on somebody else's life, which is what pregnancy is. It ultimately is. And I don't support abortion. I think we can reduce the frequency of abortion. I support the Hyde Amendment, so not one federal tax dollar goes towards abortion, because I do recognize there are people who are principally pro-life, and I would never, ever seek to take tax money out of their pocket to fund abortion. There's other things we can do to actually reduce the frequency of abortion without invading bodily autonomy. We can make birth control over the counter. We can reduce the red tape and the regulation around adoption so that it becomes an easier and less expensive option for people to take, and for people who get pregnant, it becomes a more viable option for their kids to be adopted out. We can do a lot of things to reduce the frequency of abortion without violating medical autonomy, which is ultimately what I believe and is why I'm pro-choice. Again, I don't think it's great to have an abortion. I don't think it's a wonderful thing. But I do think it is something that should be left up to the individual who is carrying the fetus. It is up to that individual who would be the vessel for that other life to determine that. Like, I will never, ever, ever be pregnant. I'm a gay man. It's not something that I'm going to have to ever think about. But I also don't want to make that decision for any person or any family that has to go through that. Because I do know people who have been pro-life, who have had to go through a medical abortion. It's not great, it's not pretty, but it's something that we should be making available for people as a matter of medical freedom.
Thank you. Excellent. Dan, please.
All right. So a second of ours submitted from the attendees here. Do you support adding back the language condemning hate and bigotry that was deleted from paragraph 3.5 in 2022? Quote, we condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant.
That's irrational.
Irrational and repugnant.
Josh?
I'm going to start this off by saying I hate communists. Okay? I very much dislike communists. Okay? I also am not a big fan of the Nazi party from 1939 Germany. That makes me a bigot. I'm bigoted towards those people. Okay? This language was so vague and made no sense. It could have been used as a cudgel for anything. That it never had any business being in our platform. That's why we removed it. I had a big part in removing that at Reno. Okay, I pushed to have that removed. It is, and look, I'm my dad's side family is from Israel. Okay, I'm not a racist at all. I have no hate in my heart whatsoever because of the color of someone's skin. But I hate communists. I think they've killed more people in the 20th century than any other political ideology. Yes, I'm bigoted. I'm very bigoted towards them. I don't think that they should have the opportunity to do those things again here in America. So it's such a vague platitude and bumper sticker slogan put into our platform that really just made a cudgel for people to fight each other in the party that it never needed to be there. So no, I absolutely don't support it going back.
Okay, great.
Again, I'm not going to I'm not going to decide for the delegates what to do. That's not my job as a candidate. What I can do is I can push out the libertarian principles out there as a candidate. And that is that collectivism is wrong. It is wrong to collectively judge people. And what that does is it often leads to politically motivated violence all over the world. Communism is no different. Communism is collectively judging people. It allowed people to be, it made everybody equal, forced them to be victims and
Sounds
owned
bigoted,
by the
buddy.
state. And that's wrong. That's bigotry is what communism is too. But ultimately the truth is like, I believe that the best way to push our libertarian principles is to push the idea that you can be your own individual. It doesn't matter who you are, who you love, how you worship, how you express yourself, so long as you're doing it without force, fraud, coercion, violence, or theft, or any kind of violation of the non-aggression principle. It really shouldn't be the government's business how you conduct yourself. And I think that's a way we should be conducting ourselves as a political party. Again, I think if we avoid culture war issues, we can focus on the real issues of limited government and allow culture to act as it's going to. So, as far as the language goes, I'll let the delegates decide what they want to put in the platform. But I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to be a candidate who supports the idea of individualism, that each and every person deserves their right to be judged on their own individual merits and not collectively.
Yes, I agree with Josh on this. I think the language was vague and also more or less some sort of vague virtue signaling that really didn't have any function other than to, proclaim this anti-racist or anti-bigoted stance. There's no need for libertarians to explicitly state this because this is in principle the case. There's, in principle, libertarians treat people as individuals. That's our principle. So to sort of go out and on the limb and to necessarily state something about holding views regarding various collectivities, I think it's over the top. And I agree with Josh on this, too, because, look, I despise communists, too. I think they have the most murderous ideology in the history of the world, political ideology, and I don't like them, and therefore I guess I'm a bigot. But I really think that this kind of language is not necessary. In principle, libertarians already treat others as individuals. Period.
If I may make a follow-up, for all three of you, really, the context of that language, of that sentence, was at the end of the platform plank, associated with the holding up of the principle of freedom of speech, expression, and allowing people to say and do as they will as long as they harm no others. And then it was at a tagline at the end of, given all this, we also think that bigotry is a dumb idea. Does that context change your opinion or change your thought?
Bigotry against communism is good, actually. Sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
The response would be that bigotry is an irrational thing.
Is it? Is it irrational? Is it irrational to hate a group of people that killed more people in the 20th century than anything else in the history of the world? Is it irrational to hate those people? I think it's not. I don't think it is.
I mean, here's what I would find irrational. If you take an American communist who's done none of those things because they have no political power in this country.
Yeah, they just burned down people's businesses over the last couple summers.
That's, again, individuals doing that. And so to say that, say, an American socialist in this country who, again, they have no political power, they're not going to be doing anything, to say that they're responsible for like the worst crimes of Mao Zedong or Stalin is collectivizing them. I don't agree with them politically. I think they have dumb ideas, but I don't think that is, it's not fair to be like, oh, well, this guy who believes this. I mean, there are plenty of college
man. They're just holding a gun to your
country.
head. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? They're not. They haven't killed you yet.
You don't need to use that. You don't need to use
I don't need to use it. Okay, yeah, I think there is a distinction, and I should have made this myself, between despising an ideology, a political ideology, and despising individuals. And I think that I don't despise any particular individuals unless they've committed crimes in the name of their philosophy. So I don't treat like the regular like sort of Joe socialist deluded person as with any kind of particular hatred. I just think that they need to be reached with the correct philosophy. But but I still don't think this language is necessary, and I think it could be contradicted by the fact that there are some groups that in fact don't deserve our respect.
I want to clear up also that the people who tell you it's irrational to hate communists would punch you in the face if you said you were a Nazi.
I want to make very clear I was not saying that.
I'm not just you in general, but a lot of the people.
So I want to ask a quick question. This should be relatively simple. We'll try to do it 60 seconds if we can.
I'm laughing.
If we can. I'll start with you, Michael, if you could. What do you think about an age-based minimum wage? What do you think? Yes, I'll start with you. What do you think about an age-based federal minimum? It's a question we got from the crowd.
Yeah.
What do you think about an age-based minimum wage?
I would never. I disapprove of any minimum wage whatsoever, whether age-based or race-based or any other basis. I think it's outrageous. It's terrible. It drives down, actually keeps people out of the workforce. This has been shown. Walter Block showed this very clearly. If you put a minimum wage on the market, this excludes people from work because there's people that don't really merit that wage. They can't produce that much value, so they'll just be shut out of the workforce. I think the minimum wage should be stricken altogether.
Josh?
I'm going to say something. You guys may not know this, but the minimum wage is always zero. Always. And the higher the minimum wage goes, the more people are going to be making $0. That's how that works. Listen, markets are deflationary. Okay. At the end of the day, the inflation that the government is falsely creating, the things like the minimum wage are making. Listen, in the 50s, we were, as a society, Americans were on their way to retiring in their 50s. Okay. And now you're going to be working until you're 90. There's no more Social Security money left. If you're 40 and under, you're done. That's it. It's over. There is no more Social Security for you. Okay. And it's because of these policies that it continue to roll. Okay. These jobs are created for people to make a lower wage and boost themselves to a higher wage. And listen, when we're talking about real wages, which are supposed to adjust with inflation, that's not happening for the very skilled top workers because they keep raising the minimum wage. And so economically speaking, it's a death sentence for the workforce.
Thank you. Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just keep this really quick. Yeah, I oppose the minimum wage on the basis of libertarian political philosophy that, the minimum wage drives down productivity. It creates conditions where, as you said, people can't enter the workforce. And as you said, the real minimum wage is zero. I would remind people that a lot of those folks who are earning $0 right now are corporate interns who are going to be making a lot more money than anybody who's making minimum wage right now. They just have to sacrifice and get coffee for a couple years, and they will be doing that. So there is real value to work. We don't need the government setting that value. The market can do that itself. And we see that most people in this country working are making far above what the minimum wage is because most people's work value is above it. But there are some people whose value will be below that minimum wage, and they deserve to have an entryway into the marketplace as well so they can learn, grow, train, and become better workers who will earn more in the long haul. But if we cut them out at the very beginning, we're cutting the legs out from underneath them and we're creating a level of dependency that we don't need to have. So I would do away with the minimum wage, whether it be age-based or not. I just find it that the market can take care of that a lot better than government.
Here we go.
All right. So this is going to, I believe, Josh. I believe.
Yep.
Yes. All right. So Fantasyland again. We're back to it.
I like it there. It's
Where would you, Mr. President Smith, find the candidates for your cabinet and your VP candidate?
Oh boy. So I think that I think there's a lot of great presidential candidates running right now, and you know, there's some people who are calling me the preeminent candidate for president of the Libertarian Party nomination. Okay, I don't know that that's true. We may get there, and it may be any of us three. It may be somebody dark horse. Jo Jorgensen was not the preeminent candidate when we showed up to Orlando. Okay, she was not the preeminent candidate. So you never know what's going to happen. I think there's a lot of great people running with great ideas, and I'd be happy to see anybody from this field jump into the vice presidential race should I get the nomination. I'd be happy to work with just about anybody that's running right now. I think they all have really good ideas. There's things that I don't agree with, but maybe we work those out behind the scenes and learn how to message correctly together. As far as my picks for my cabinet go, I haven't even put any thought in that. Is America crazy enough to put me in the White House? If you are, we're going to slash and cut everything. But I'm pulling people like Dave Smith. I'm pulling people like Scott Horton to work on foreign policy. I'm pulling Michael Malice to be Speaker of the House or the public speaker for me. I mean, yeah, there's so many great people out there that are ready to be in a cabinet position that will cut and slash and talk their way through anything. So, yeah, Dave Smith, Scott Horton, Michael Malice. Yeah, these guys, you know, maybe there's a position for them in the cabinet too. You know, I think Michael Rectenwald, not Malice. Close though. We can get Michael in there kicking butt on the WEF and the global agenda, and yeah, and we can have Chase in there helping to slash inflation. There's so many good people in the Libertarian Party that have great ideas about this stuff, and there would be no shortage of picks.
Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to picking a running mate, the main thing I'm going to look for is somebody that's going to be able to get out there with the energy and enthusiasm that we need to run a 50-state campaign, who's ready to run a positive, issues-focused campaign that activates activists across the country, because that's what I'm doing, and I need a partner that's going to be able to do that. Now, let's say I get elected, I'm trying to get a cabinet official. I have a few conditions for things. I will not have a Secretary of Defense who is not a veteran of the War on Terror, who will not want to, who will actually be able to say, I want to remove our military footprint and be there. I want an Attorney General who's been a defense attorney, somebody who's actually gone to bat for defendants in a court of law and had to fight against the state for the rights and for the freedoms and for the liberty of their clients. So that's the kind of Attorney General I would want. So I want to find somebody up and down the line who has not been supporting the state, but actually been fighting the state and been fighting the state's message at every single level. We're going to have a Secretary of State who wants to talk about diplomacy and remove the military footprint. We want to have a Secretary of Defense who's going to be a veteran. We want to have, like I said, an Attorney General who's going to be a defense attorney. We want to have somebody in the Department of Treasury who actually wants to get inflation under control, quit printing dollars out of thin air. But we're going to find those folks who are wanting to really push a libertarian policy forward. Do I have all of their names right now? Hell no, because I don't know every single person in the world. But I will tell you this. I don't know everything, but I know enough to know to get experts in libertarianism in those positions and to actually have people who've been fighting for individuals. And I will name and drop one person. If I could have any Attorney General, it would be a woman named Catherine Bernard out of Georgia who has gotten hundreds of people off from BS drug convictions and who has fought against the state at every single level. And she is a hardcore Ron Paul libertarian.
Thank you, Chase. Michael.
Do you want to repeat the question? I mean, it's been a little while.
Of course.
He's living in his own fantasy land.
All right, I just got to find it here.
It is
right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where would you find your cabinet members and your VP candidate?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me just say this. Nobody's the presumptive nominee here. And I've actually been endorsed by Dave Smith, and the Mises Caucus itself. So there's no presumption here, I think, and nobody's getting this by some sort of endowment through sort of nobody deserves it. Everybody has to earn it. So that being said, look, I wouldn't fill all kind of cabinet positions because a lot of these positions would be eliminated. in my administration. They would be just gotten rid of. So I don't want to start talking about who I can bring in and collect into the state when I'm trying to dismantle the state to begin with. As for running mates, I don't really want to disclose necessarily who I'm looking at here because they are not sure they can do it, but they would love to. But I do have people in mind, and they are from inside the hardcore activist Libertarian Party base.
Excellent. I now want to move to questions that people submitted that were directly to you. So these questions are for an individual. That person will get 90 seconds to respond. And the other two, if you want to touch something, you can for 30 seconds. But the question isn't to you. I'm going to start now with Chase. It's your turn. So this is to you, Chase. Do you really think that ending the police is within the powers of the president?
No. I don't think ending your local police is within the power of the president. That's federalism 101 right there. The president doesn't have the power to do that. But what we can do is actually make certain demands on federal law enforcement. So a president can seek to have legislation that would make all federal law enforcement have to carry liability insurance. We can pass federal legislation that says end qualified immunity for federal law enforcement. So when the FBI comes into your town and screws you over, you can actually sue them in the court of law and get restitution for that. So there are things you can do and lead the way on criminal justice reform. And then you have to use the bully pulpit to go to governors and even more locally to counties to say, hold your departments accountable. And then we can also, of course, engage local liberty activists, hashtag Stop Cop City, and stop the militarization of police in our local neighborhoods, which is something I've been leading the way on in my neighborhood. And I encourage each and every one of you, if you see police growing, police militarization, or increased law enforcement invading your liberty, get with people in a single issue coalition in your city and fight back. It's what we're doing in Atlanta, and we are holding the Democrats in power extremely accountable. They are literally crapping their pants based on the action that we've been doing with the Stop Cop City movement. So as president, you can do things federally, but you can also use the bully pulpit to make sure local action starts happening and help lead the way there.
Excellent. Michael, do you want 30 seconds on that?
Yeah, sure. I would just say that today our circumstances are not the same as they were even in 2016 or 2012 with the question of over-policing. We have a kind of a different scenario right now. We have what's been called anarcho-tyranny, and that is we have the state will not enforce its laws. It's allowing criminality to run rampant while it also terrorizes innocent people, innocent so-called law-abiding people or non-NAP violators are being
Thank you, Mike.
terrorized.
Thank you. Josh, do you want 30 seconds on this?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, excellent. Good. Go ahead.
All right. The next question is that was submitted directly for a candidate. It's coming to Michael Rectenwald. Mm-hmm. And you're the most recent addition to the field. And the question is, how long have you been in the LP, the Libertarian Party?
The Libertarian Party. Well, I haven't been in the Libertarian Party very long at all. I've been in the Libertarian movement. There are plenty of very significant people in the Libertarian movement who are not even Libertarian Party members. I could go on probably through a laundry list of these people that have no real activity within the Libertarian Party. So I came to the Libertarian Party, honestly, because I was asked to run as the candidate. And I tell you what, before 2 years ago, I never would have joined the Libertarian Party. It didn't represent me in some ways. I think the Mises Caucus having taken over the party, now the party represents the way I understand libertarianism. And so that's why I'm able to be in it. And I think that, my former political affiliations are really, everybody's had a former political affiliation. Chase mentioned his, Josh has mentioned his before, so I think that's a moot point. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Josh, do you want 30 seconds on that?
Oh, yeah. I just want to say that I've been a member of the Libertarian Party since 2010. Prior to that, I was a Republican that worked on Ron Paul's campaign in 2008. And, of course, he famously endorsed me in 2020 for national chairman of the Libertarian Party. So I'm a long way removed from any other political party at this part. I just want to make that very clear. And not to knock on Michael. On Michael. It's been a long time. And I've been on the national committee for 3 terms, elected. It's, I put in a lot of time and work and effort and been to 49 states.
Okay.
So.
Chase, you want 30 seconds?
I've just been in the party. I've been a Libertarian voter since 2010, been a party member since 2012, served on my state's XCOM, and also been a local chair and vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta. But I've also done stuff outside Liberty Movement, outside the Libertarian Party. Exactly, I've worked for 501c like Students for Liberty, and I've also been the fundraising director for Outright USA, which is a liberty-oriented LGBT rights group. So I have been both within and without of the party, very involved. But yeah, I've been around about as long as Josh, since 2010.
Here we go. Great. And the final question for our debate goes to Josh.
Me?
Yes, goes to you. It is 90 seconds to you, and if the others want 30 seconds, they may have it. This is Josh. Why don't you run for a lower office to get a political resume?
Sure. This is my 4th national campaign in a row. Okay, I know how to run a national campaign. I could run locally, and I probably will. There's a state rep in my area named Claire Celsey in Iowa, who's an absolute gun grabber in one of the reddest, most gun freedom states in the country. I'll probably run against her someday. I'm not going to win the presidency, but I have built a really large platform over the last 6 or 7 years, not just through my show, but through other people's shows. I was able to just get on Timcast. We're working on getting on PBD. We've got to use that to leverage that 5% of the population that will vote for us, so that we can change the political landscape. And that's my goal. That's my only goal here, is to change the political landscape, wake people up to the wonders that are nullification at your state and local level, and start getting some more freedom in our lifetimes in these states where you can then start voting with your feet, right? You're like, well, that's what they're doing in New Hampshire. Why can't we do it with Iowa? Why can't we do it in other places where we're taking over these state houses? So I have some extra leverage as a national candidate, and I didn't see somebody stepping up that I thought was going to be able to do what I was doing, and so that's why I'm running for this position.
Okay, Michael, you get 30 seconds if you want. Anyway, do you want to get a minute?
Yeah, I just want to add that.
Minute,
I'll have a minute if I don't mind. If you don't mind. I believe that I will bring a huge media footprint into the platform and into the party, having been on major TV and radio and podcasts, from Tucker Carlson several times to all of the other shows on Fox that you probably hate because they're hosted by neocons. But I went on those shows and represented libertarianism. And so I bring that media footprint. I'll have a course that's coming out from Hillsdale College very shortly that'll reach at least 6 million people. And that will put my name in front of all these people. So I've got a vast reach into the media. And I think that I'll bring that platform into the party and give it that a special foothold. Thank you.
Do you want to let Chase go first for 30 seconds, or do you want?
No, I just want to quickly respond.
Go, Josh.
The corporate news media is dead. They hate you. They don't like your policies. They're never going to ever let you give an honest take on the corporate news media anymore. It's absolutely dead. What we need to do is get on the big shows like Timcast, PBD, Joe Rogan, Tucker now that he's doing independent media, and I'm talking 158 million viewers. We're talking 4 times the daily viewers of CNN and Fox.
Yes.
So corporate news media is dead. It's out. Do the big shows. Go after the big shows. No more corporate news media.
Michael, you can respond to that if you want to. Not now, but during your closing statement.
Okay.
Yeah. Chase, go ahead. 30 seconds.
So the question was originally about what have you done and why don't you run local? I have run for Congress. I have run statewide for the U.S. Senate. When I ran for the U.S. Senate, I got national news for the Libertarian Party by forcing a runoff that created a lot of buzz for us. I want to continue fighting the duopoly, not just in one state, but all 50. And I would say I earned a lot of media doing that. We have a really professional media team that is helping us get media hits as we travel across the country. And we're doing that in local markets all over the country where regular folks are getting able to see what this campaign's all about. And that's the kind of campaign I'm going to run, is one that's full of energy and the ability to gather that media. And I have ran before, and I will make a difference, and I'll do it again as president.
Excellent.
Or as our nominee, rather.
Thank you so much for all that, guys. We're going to move on now. Dan, is that all right? We're going to move on now to our closing statements. Does anyone have any chits remaining?
I got 2.
You got 2.
All done.
Okay, so it'll be
Mike, you're out as well. Okay. Good.
Yeah, so it'll be 3 minutes for Chase, 2 minutes for Michael, and 2 minutes for Josh. And the last question was Josh. So now we're going to go to Chase, please, 3 minutes, your closing statement.
So once again, I want to say thank you guys for coming out for this. I know political debates are not the most exciting thing you could be doing with your evening, but I want to say thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for the folks who are watching. My name is Chase Oliver. I want to be our nominee. I want to run across all 50 states and be our nominee. This is the 31st state I have visited as I'm campaigning. By the end of the year, I will have visited libertarians in 44 states on the way to all 50 by our convention. I believe if we're going to be our presidential nominee, we ought to get to know libertarians in every single state in the country, and I'm demonstrating in in real time the energy and enthusiasm we need to run a 50-state campaign, and I'm doing it on a shoestring budget right now. I'm showing you we can do a lot with a little. When I ran for the United States Senate, my average vote was under 20 cents per vote. My opponents paid $20 to $25 per vote that they earned. So I can tell you right now, with the limited resources the Libertarian Party is going to have compared to the major parties, we can make a huge difference. We can get to the 5% that people want us to get. We can secure major party status in states like Iowa. We can secure ballot access in states like Georgia, where it's dependent upon our presidential and vice presidential nominee to get the numbers we need. And I will be determined to be the best representative for this party. I want to be our brand representative to help those local Libertarian candidates all over the country succeed, get elected, and start dismantling the state in our neighborhoods all over the country. And to do that, we have to have the energy and enthusiasm to break through, to be something different, and to show the beauty and the amazing positive power that liberty is. And we can do that together. I encourage each and every one of you to check out the campaign. Go to votechaseoliver.com. See how busy we've been. See how much media we've gotten. See how many times we've gone out and gotten to talk to regular folks to hear their stories, their struggles, and bring them the libertarian solutions that get them to go, you know what? I will vote for you. I've heard that so many times. We're going to hear it thousands and thousands and millions of times across the country if I'm our nominee. I guarantee you we will improve upon 2020. We will improve upon 2016. And we will start the work over the long haul of setting our country and our world free in our lifetime by having a great presidential race in 2024 that is not just going to prep us up for the next 2 years, but for the next quarter century of liberty. It's time for us to reach out particularly to those Gen Z voters. They're the next generation of voters, and they're going to be the largest voting bloc in 10 years. If we aren't starting to sow those seeds, we will never have a crop to harvest in 10 to 15 years. And it is important for us to be able to speak to their issues, their concerns, and have the youthful energy to be a contrast to the 80-year-old dinosaurs in the two-party system. I will be 39 on Election Day, half Donald Trump's age, less than half of Joe Biden's age, and it's time for the generation that fought in the war on terror, the time for the generation that had the entire real estate market fall out from underneath us right as we were getting started, and the generation that's right now raising families all over the country with runaway inflation and statism in their lives. We need to present them an alternative they can be proud to vote for. I want to be that alternative. I want to be the Libertarian nominee for president, and I want to help us have the best damn election year we have ever had, and I will work every single day with every fiber of my being to make that happen. Go to votechaseoliver.com, join the movement, and let's set this country free. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you. Michael, please, 2 minutes.
Yes. Thanks to everybody for coming out, and thanks to the North New Jersey Libertarian Party and to my esteemed running mates, or not running mates, but co-runners.
Maybe someday, Michael.
Co-runners. No, maybe. And I just want to say that my campaign is about wrecking the regime. And what we mean by that is not Michael Rectenwald going in with a wrecking ball and taking out the federal government. It means growing the party at the local level, getting the grassroots ground-up movement going, getting people running in local offices and supporting them. And I should add this, that my campaign will vow and is already giving to the Libertarian Party all of the data that we collect on all of our contributors and supporters and so forth. So I challenge the other candidates to make the same commitment, that if they have email lists and they have contribution lists, that they give that information to grow the Libertarian Party, because I want to grow the party from the ground up and to grow it broadly across all localities. So what we're doing is running to wreck the regime. This isn't my campaign alone. It's the campaign of others as well. Many people joining in at the ground level to bring about this decentralized revolution. Please go to wrecktheregime.com. That's REC, theregime.com for more. And thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Josh,
let me preface my closing statements with, for 2 years in a row, I was the #1 recruiter in the Libertarian Party. I have been committed to giving my data to the Libertarian Party for probably longer than I should have been at some point, okay? Anyways, so look, the Democrats are right. There is an oppressor and the oppressed. Their class analysis is wrong. It's the ruling elite and everybody else. The Republicans are right. It is barbarization versus collectivization and civilization. But their analysis is wrong. It's the regime ruining the big cities, destroying our lives, taking out the middle class. They hate you. They want you dead. The only way we're ever going to get past this is not through a libertarian government. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. They're too deeply entrenched. The administrative state will literally go to any lengths to destroy countries and people for resources. It's over. We've got to take out these local and state political offices. We've got to start telling federal agents they're no longer allowed in our state. And it's the only way it's ever going to work. But we also got to get 5% in the presidential election, which means we have to go out and talk to people who don't understand the administrative state, that don't understand the deep state. They don't understand globalization. They don't even know what the middle class means. How do we talk to those people and get 5%? We have to give them a message that they can get behind. We have to separate ourselves from the two old parties. The Uniparty has failed us as a people. They're very successful in destroying us. I've been doing this work already for 6 years. I've been doing it since I campaigned for Ron Paul in 2008. It's anti-war, anti-Fed, anti-federal edicts. And I'm going to take this chance to travel the country, get on all the biggest media platforms, and tell people who we are, what we want, and how we're going to achieve it. Please go to joshuasmith2024.com and help us in the fight. Thank you.
Here we go. Guys, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it tremendously. Thank you, Dan, for helping me out with this, too. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Any announcements? Are we okay? No. Are there any announcements? Donate, please. Please donate.
Give money to the New Jersey Libertarian Party.
Absolutely, yes. So, guys, did you like what you saw today? Did you think it was valuable? Did it help you out in any way? If it did, then support the people who did it. Support the people who did it, and you can see it right here, njlp.org. Whatever you can give, please give. If you can give some cash, please do so. If you can't give cash, then need something else. Volunteers. If you can help, please help. Dan, you're a former chair. Do you want to say a couple words about that?
The most important thing, the most powerful tool in politics is the human voice, followed very closely by the handshake. If you actually want to make a difference in your world, do what the effective people in your world do and get out and work with your community, join your local party, and get moving forward. Don't think about it. Take action.
There we go, guys. Take action. Thank you so much tonight. It was good seeing you all. Thank you all. Thank you.
Three-quarters of the country thinks we're on the wrong track, and that includes majorities of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. Most Americans don't have favorable views of either party or the top leaders in them, and they think both sides are too captive to the extremes.
Presidential candidate on the Free Georgia podcast, Mr. Mike Termont.
Libertarian presidential candidate Mike Termont.
Please welcome to the stage Mr. Mike Termont, 24.
Can you hear me in the back? That's too bad, because I'm probably going to say a few things that piss you off.
I believe we must lead with a policy platform of the very most transformational ideas. I'm running what I call the Gold New Deal, a bold proposal to reimagine the relationship between the government that we will tolerate and us as American citizens. Now. It's an obligation because no one else is going to do it. Our government has gone off the rails. And Americans, I believe, are more ready than ever before to listen to a plan for institutional level change. And number two, I'm a different type of candidate. My campaign represents a stark departure from other libertarian campaigns and certainly from other campaigns and other parties. Ours is a government that operates not in our interest, but in the interest of the instruments of power itself.
Talk about capping federal spending, for example, it's based. And by that I mean it's based on experience in the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. When I talk about police reform and ending the horrifically counterproductive drug prohibition, it too is based. This is what you learn on the road as a police officer. If you want to end the FBI, end the IRS, end the rest of the federal bureaucracy, if you want to end the Fed, then I'm your guy. See MikeTremont.com.
Take a moment and remember the feeling. When they called you not essential. When they dictated what you could do, where you could go, how you could breathe. It's disgusting, isn't it? And they're trying to do it again. We've seen what happens when the people lose control. When politicians and unelected bureaucrats make the big decisions on our behalf, whether we like them or not. When the choices are taken away from us one by one. We've seen what happens when they strip away medical freedom, when they trample on informed consent, when they dismiss our cries of justice. They laughed at us. They called us names.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
And they shamed us for not going along with their every demand. Enough already. It's time to hold these tyrants accountable. In the midst of them trying to do it again, this wasn't a public health measure. This was an act of war against a peaceful people. But a reckoning is coming, and we're leading the charge. This campaign is for all of us. I'm asking you to join this movement that's for every single person who felt the crushing weight of mandates, the sting of being called unessential, the pain of having your liberties stripped away. I'm Joshua Smith, and I'm running because you are essential, and because our freedoms are non-negotiable. Not last time, not this time, not ever again.
I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good.
We faced the challenges. We felt the pain, but we're not defeated. Together, we have the power to create a brighter future, one where liberty thrives and tyranny dies. I endorse prosecuting the COVID tyrants and using Guantanamo Bay to lock them away for their crimes against humanity. In the face of all of this happening again, where they think we're stupid enough to fall for it, in 2024, a vote for me is a vote for vengeance. Go to joshuasmith2024.com to find out how you can help.
We have 20th century politicians who have been running the 21st century mechanisms of government for my entire adult life, and it's time for that to stop. And the people are getting tired of it. Rise up, because we will not be silenced.
Instead of just talking about liberty, we go across the country, reaching out to activists to show what liberty in action actually looks like. That's the kind of campaign for president we're running. One that shows us the positive, aspirational message of liberty that voters can connect with.
All people are free. They have inherent freedom and liberty.
We support liberty 100% unfiltered all the time.
I've gotten tear gas in the streets while I protest for justice reform. My generation is the generation that got sent to fight the war on terror. My generation is the generation that had the entire real estate market fall out from underneath us right as we were getting started. It's my generation that is right now trying to raise families all over the country with massive runaway inflation. This is not a left versus right issue. This is a right versus wrong issue.
The Chase Oliver President campaign will be pulling no punches. We'll be putting a bold message of liberty forward that voters can identify with. We'll be exposing the two-party system for who they are.
Are you actually reading the bills, or are you just taking Chuck Schumer's word for it when you vote on these things? I will fight like hell to make sure that each and every one of you is replaced. We libertarians, we want to enter this race to be a check against the two-party system and to give you somebody honest to vote for. Why is that the radical idea, not the rational idea? Nobody will buy and pay for a libertarian. We don't just blow with the political winds with whatever's popular. We stand on principle. And I say as a libertarian, we do not believe in the initiation of force. Take the boot off of our neck, support freedom, and support the people. Thank you very much. I'm Chase Oliver, a candidate for president, and I approve this message.